So called the order, the joint public hearing and plan commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Joint public hearing and plan commission meeting at the Richard Young Fire Station, North 54, West 26455 Lisbon Road, County Highway K, on May 25th, 2025 at 6:35 p.m. Got President Gerke,
Here.
Trustee Baum,
Here.
Trustee Quinn,
Here.
Inspector Alhaffen,
Here.
Commissioner Everly,
Here.
Commissioner McCormick,
Here.
Commissioner Lesser,
Here.
Commissioner Howard is present on Zoom, Attorney Larson,
Here.
Planner Sumwalt,
Here.
Engineer Lysis,
Here.
Administrator Green,
Here.
and Clerk Capazzo to record the minutes.
And just to correct one statement, it's the 28th today. I think you said the 25th.
I may have said the 25th. It is May 28th.
So we'll open the public hearing. Notice was given that a joint public hearing was to be held by the Lisbon Village Board and Plan Commission on Wednesday, May 28th, 2025, during the regular Plan Commission meeting, which starts at 6:30-ish here at the fire station, to solicit comments on the request from the applicant, Ryan, I'm gonna get the last name, Fritsch, from Newman Developments, on behalf of the owner, Hickory Hill Farms, to rezone the parcel known as LSBT 0224.999.003 from the A10 agricultural, UC upland corridor, and C1 conservancy districts to the R2 single-family residential, PR park and recreation, UC upland corridor, and the C1 conservancy districts.
So you
Do
can,
you want to start us off?
let's open the public hearing, hear from the planner, and then we can invite the public.
Or do you wanna?
Just announce that we're opening. the
Oh,
public
okay,
hearing.
so the public hearing is here open.
Okay, again, we have a petition from Newman Developments. This is to rezone approximately 54.9 acre property. Again, it's the southwest corner of Silver Spring Drive and Mary Hill Road from A10 Upland Corridor C1 and Shoreland Overlay District to R2 Upland Corridor C1 and Parks and Recreation District, and keeping the Shoreland Overlay as is. This is to accommodate a conceptual 26 lot, single family residential development on approximately 54.4 acres. The Lisbon Village Board recently adopted ordinance 2025-06 to amend the land use map, component of the comprehensive development plan, which was the first step in this project for an approximately 1.96 acre portion in the southeastern corner of this proposed development. Again, that portion is intended to, at a later date, be conveyed to Ausblick Ski Hill. And a portion of this rezoning includes changing the zoning for that portion to the PR district, again, to accommodate the future intended use for that. And then the Plan Commission previously reviewed a concept plan for this development back on September 3rd, 2023. So this would be essentially our third step for this particular development. As far as the comp plan, again, we just did a recent amendment so that the proposed rezoning will be consistent with the land use in the comprehensive development plan. The main change here again is from A10 agricultural density 1 unit per 10 acres to the requested R2, which would allow lots as small as 43,560 square feet or an acre, with an average width of 150 feet. As far as the concept plan goes, the lots that are being shown would be consistent with that. As far as conditions of approval, we're limiting this to the tax parcel number as presented in the application materials. This would be subject to the Village of Lisbon's approval of a final plat, which would be in substantial conformity with the proposed site plan that's in the packet this evening. And then, subject to the approximately 1.97 acres proposed to have the PR Park and Recreation zoning being conveyed to the adjoining property to the south owned by Ausblick. And finally, to have the staff draft an ordinance and place it in final form consistent with the village's discussion on this item. The petitioner is here in the audience if there's any questions for them from the Plan Commission.
Do you have a preference if we have the petitioner speak next, or?
It would be logical to hear from the petitioner next and then from the general public, yes.
All right, one of you want to step up to the microphone and that
Brian,
you're,
you're just gonna have to switch it on top. Yep.
All right, good evening. Brian Lindgren, Newman Developments. Good to see you all again. Thanks, Orin, board. I can't do a whole lot better job introducing it. This one, we've been working on for a while. It's currently property owned by the Meisners, who farmed the area for a long time. It was really, part of a long-term residential plan. It fits into the comprehensive plan, as was already mentioned. 1 acre lots, really kind of split into a north and south components because it's separated by a conservancy, upland or secondary environmental corridor area. So it really conforms with the R2 zoning, which is what we're asking for, all 1 acre lots meeting average lot widths. The only difference in there, as was pointed out, is on the very far southeast corner. We're working with Ausblick, who's expressed a desire to expand some parking, which would be a completely separate application, but in preparation for them to come forward on their own, we'll take a small corner of the property and set it up for them as zoning that matches their zoning, that Parks and Recreation. So, pending approval, we would work on preliminary plat, all the necessary engineering, soil testing, so on and so forth, and prepare this as a development project, more than likely at this point to break ground in the spring of 2026. So happy to answer any questions you have. Or get out of the way and let the public hearing
Yeah.
commence.
So I have a question. So Hickory Hills Farms is still the owner of this property?
They are, yep.
And as far as the part that's not going to be developed into residential lots, who's going to own that in the future and maintain that?
Which part are you speaking of?
Because not all of it's going to be developed into residential lots. There's-
Yeah, so this is one tax key right now. The part of the area that's staying as conservancy zoning, which is largely in the middle, will be owned by the homeowners association. We'll establish a homeowners association. The county manages stormwater, so we'll have the homeowners association in place to manage stormwater, which will be a component of the outlots, and the rest of the environmental corridor and conservancy area will be in that outlot as well. So.
can take questions or comments from the board or commission, or we can take them from the public. I'll probably go to the public next unless anyone feels they need to jump in first. Is there anyone here to speak on this topic?
I have one other question. So you're next to Ausblick Ski Hill, and there's been history already with Ausblick Ski Hill. They have multiple commercial wells on their property to pump water into their ponds, which is used to make snow in the wintertime. When they're pumping water out of those wells, it creates a vacuum in the aqueduct underneath that area of the land. So I know areas to the south haven't been affected by Ausblick when they're pumping water. What are you going to do to ensure that the new residents in this property aren't going to be affected by that situation when it occurs?
Yeah, as far as well requirements go, we default to the DNR. So as the well drillers drill individual wells, there's only 25 lots on 50 some acres. So there's really not a large stress on any sort of water table by any means. But the well drillers themselves will meet the required volumes and gallons per minute. And really that's about all the regulation we can put on a well.
But it depends on when they're drilling. Because when they're
Yeah.
pumping water out, it creates this
Yeah.
vacuum and it can lower that water table by 50 to 75 feet when they're doing it. So it creates a problem. So what can you do, or what can we have the DNR do to make sure that these properties aren't going to be affected?
I don't think
By
there's
this
really
deal.
any thing that we can impose upon it other than letting the folks that regulate well drilling, and meeting the gallons per minute, the flows that they need to. Now, if there's seasonality, that's not uncommon in water tables. So that's something that they'll have responsibility for. So. I mean, we did, I mean, just for an example, I did an extensive groundwater study, which I would not do here. I don't think there's any necessity for it on a project in Delafield. Dan is very familiar with that. 212 home sites did not, the conclusion was that it did not put a stress on the water table. Now, there's, an abundance of wells in that area as well. So I guess.
The concern here is
Yeah.
not the 26
Yeah.
sites, right?
Yep.
It's the ski hill with the commercial wells that's causing the
These are
problem.
high capacity wells. I understand that, but
Right.
yeah, no, that's.
So is there anything we can request
Yeah.
for the DNR to do a study on this to make sure these lots aren't impacted?
I don't believe there is. I believe that's the jurisdiction of the DNR.
Yeah,
Well, I'll comment, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, we're just talking about the rezoning. There will be a developers agreement. We can have that conversation at that time. The plat approval may be another time. I guess there are ways we can put potential purchasers on notice of that issue, a potential issue. I don't want to assume facts, without some proof of the impact that we anticipate, so. I don't know if that really responds to your issue, but today we're here to hear from the public. We're here to hear, this is a public hearing. And so I think we should, I made a note of the issue. It's certainly something we will circle back on to think more about. But for right now, let's continue with the public hearing and hear what the petitioner and the public have to say.
Yeah, and I would advocate that we let those who are qualified to monitor wells and regulate wells continue to do so, and that would be the DNR.
All right, so we'll take comments from the public. If you'd like to make a comment, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and make your comments. I thought there was a couple of people here.
Good evening. My name is Joan Plato. Address is N65 W26307 Lake Drive in Sussex. I have a couple things. The most important thing that I think most of us that live on Lake Drive want to discuss is why they plan to open up Lake Drive and connect the two subdivisions. We already have I believe it's 4 subdivisions that now attach to Beacon Hills, we started with about 100 homes. We now have, with all the roads attaching to each other, about 375 homes and the traffic to go with it. So I guess my question for Brian is, do you plan to connect Lake Drive and open it up to Mary Hill Road? And if so, why? What is the need for that?
You have to address your
Okay.
comments up here.
All right. And my second comment is with regard to the retention ponds and the pumping. Since they put in the retention ponds for the golf course and the ski hill and do the pumping, every year our ditches are completely flooded to the point we can't get a lawnmower through. They're complete mud. We have had the town out to look at them. So if you don't think that's going to be an issue for this new subdivision, I can tell you right now that it is. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, next person.
Hi, my name is Lauren Mullendor. My address is N65W26343 Lake Drive, Sussex. I have a bunch of questions, and I guess I didn't realize that we aren't allowed to ask questions of the developer, but I have the same question about connecting Lake Drive to the Alpine Hills, making it a through road. So my questions were, what, if anything, what options do we have available to us as residents to weigh in on this? Or do we just make our comments and then it gets approved regardless? So I'd like to know what options we have available.
We're gonna let you, but so
Yeah.
we will take comments and then to the extent we can factually respond to some of those, or
Yes.
as many of those, we will.
Right,
but-
so that's where you guys as the board can tell us at least what we as residents can do or what's out of our realm of control anyway, right?
So even we took those and didn't respond, we are going to respond to all
Yes.
of them in a few minutes here.
Yes. So my question, which you may not know, I assume the developer would know, is if there is a reason that Lake Drive should become a through road to the Alpine Hills subdivision. Another one, is there a reason that the subdivision could not be laid out with a cul-de-sac butting up to Lake Drive as a dead end, as the layout is proposed to the north against Crest Drive currently? And then to address, I mean, if we're gonna go there or not go there, I do think it's important to point out the DNR hasn't even been involved at this time. To my understanding, it's been this Heartland Ecological Group that's been performing these studies. So that's a third party that's paid by the developer to complete these studies. So I do think that it's important to get the DNR involved. And because the seasonality that we're talking about isn't just normal seasonality of a water table, meaning like the 4 seasons. We're talking about the seasonality of a commercial business that's drawing on these, right? So, I mean, I just think it is important to point out that, like, and then my follow-up question is, should this rezoning be approved tonight? Should this go to R2 zoning? What else? What other processes, what other steps are there in the way of, you mentioned like a developer's agreement? I would like to be told at least some more information about that, because we keep sitting here and I know at least myself, I'm in the dark as far as every time it feels like once something gets approved, is that the last step and then this is happening? Or is there any other things and steps that go into making sure that everything's been thought about before it gets fully approved and they break ground in a matter of a year or less? Thank you.
Taking down a lot of these issues. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment?
We have someone on Zoom with a hand raised.
Do you have their name? Yeah.
Am I coming through?
Sarah, yep, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sarah Krolowitz. I live at N65W26283 Lake Drive. I am neighbors with Lauren and also Joan. My questions and comments come along the same lines regarding the through road. If any changes could be made regarding that. Also, regarding the iron levels in the water. And I know that's probably something that's more along the DNR lines. But it seems like every time a new subdivision is added on, the iron levels completely change in our subdivision. I know the last time I had water treatment out to my residents. They said it's the highest iron levels they've ever seen in a residential community. I'm concerned that adding on to the draw on our water system is gonna, again, change the iron levels to our residences, which could greatly impact us continually. And I also kind of second Lauren's questions about being kept in the dark. Like, what is the next steps? Is it basically it gets approved tonight and it's done and they kind of do whatever they want and whatever layout that they want? That is what I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else? Otherwise, we can kind of answer some of these and then we can, you can still have the opportunity before we close if you'd like. Do you want to go now or do you want to wait a couple of minutes?
Now, I don't know if my questions are really very relevant because this is my first time.
That's perfectly fine. Come on up and again, start with your name and address if you would.
My name's Erin Young. I'm at N67W26335 Crest Drive. So we are on the opposite road. One of the concerns that we have had since Newman has developed on the other side of Mary Hill is that the wildlife there's been a heavy increase. We've lived there for like 11 years, never saw a coyote, we would hear them. Now we have to check with a flashlight every single night to keep our animals safe. There's an issue. We called wildlife about that. So that's one problem. It is also very wet there. So I really wasn't, the water problem really wasn't top of my mind, but it is very wet back there. So I don't know if you guys know that. And I am not happy about a street being put there either. There's already a lot of cars that come through our, not my street, but the street that enters all of our streets. And then it also connects way up into the hill. And there's a lot of homes on the other side of Mary Hill. So, I mean, that's going to really change what our neighborhood looks like. And so I want to know what that looks like. And also if the C1 area becomes part of a homeowners association, how does that affect us as the current homeowners? How does that affect us?
I think I can answer everything that you're going through, but can you be more specific on that last question?
Okay, so Brian had said that the C1 Conservancy area would be owned by the homeowners association. So I would like to know, how does that affect the current homeowners that are around that area? Do we end up paying that as well? Now, do we become part of a homeowners association?
No, just in that development.
So that, yeah, that development would have the rights to use that, and in theory, others outside would not, but they would also have the responsibilities to upkeep to the extent.
Okay, so I guess I would like to have more information about what that might look like in the future as a homeowner that lives there now,
Sure.
so.
Matt, I have a question.
So I mean, we can, is that it for everyone as far as we're aware for comments, or there'll be more? Go ahead, Joe, go ahead. Everyone's got the opportunity in a couple minutes here.
Who is the question for?
Question is for the developer and also for the village. The exhibit, the rezoning.
One second, Joe.
Joe, let's bring the developer back up and the developer can respond to the questions that have been raised and also to your question.
Welcome back up.
Sure, I guess, do you want to close the public hearing and do this as an agenda item or leave it open?
No, this is.
Yeah, we still have other people here as well.
Nope, we're just going to address the questions that have been raised so far.
Okay. I guess I'll just go from the top, and I heard a lot of comments on why connect the road, why should Lake Drive be connected? I mean, speaking solely as a developer, it's more expensive to connect the road, but I can't stand up here and say we shouldn't connect the road. I think it should be connected. It promotes a proper flow of traffic for pedestrians, for, for people, in cars. I think it also promotes, safety. I mean, we hear it in every community that we go to that, what happens if a specific access is blocked? How do people get to, the emergency? It's proper planning really more than anything to have roads in a community connected. So, I would advocate that it be connected. Given the nature of the subdivision is really kind of bifurcated into two halves. The north half cannot be connected. There isn't an option to connect it. The south half will connect, and it's 12 lots. And the burden on traffic is negligible, and the impact on traffic patterns is likely negligible, as most people are probably headed out to Silver Spring. So some of the information on next steps, I guess, is a little bit more equipped to answer. So the development process, for those everyone's benefit, is really, the first step, as was mentioned, we're here applying to change the comprehensive plan. A comprehensive plan in a community shapes what that community's vision is on what could or should happen. So this area is in a long-term vision meant to be residential. Next step is what we're doing right now, applying for a rezone, a specific zoning that grants a set of rights to create lots of a certain size that conform with residential zoning. After that, there are things like a preliminary plat. A preliminary plat puts meaningful lines on paper that are guidelines. We've done a lot of the soil testing that's generally required in a subdivision like this that is not on municipal water and sewer. This is all be a private well and septic. So there's a lot of soil testing that needs to be done that's already been done. Those things all go to the county for review. They go to the village's engineers for review and the village's staff. There's a developer's agreement, which is largely statutory, that describes the protections the villages have for us as the developer to finish the work and dedicate that work to the village and what each party is responsible for. So the answer is, after this rezone, most of it follows a process that is laid out, that as long as it follows what is presented will happen. The other questions, drainage, rainwater, so on, the Village of Lisbon still uses Waukesha County as the stormwater control. They have an entire department that will review all of the plans that we submit for stormwater control. We're kind of at the bottom of a hill, so we're going to have to account for a lot of the water coming in. So I'm confident that those reviewers will look very closely at that. The delineations that were done by Heartland Ecological, yes, that is a third party that does environmental corridor and wetland delineations. That is really something that's granted by right by the DNR to do that. The DNR itself has very few delineators. They certainly cannot get to every site. So they allow for these third parties who are certified. They can apply to be assured by the DNR, and they take that assurance very strictly. So the DNR always has the authority to go out and double check a site, and they do that routinely to make sure that these assured delineators are doing just like any licensed individual, protecting their license and their accreditation. So I'm very confident that that was done. And in this particular case, SewerPAC, which is a regional planning commission, was also out to verify the environmental corridor. So I've got no doubts and full confidence in the environmental corridor and the wetland delineation that was done here. So, and then back, I think on the discussion about wells, groundwater in this entire area can have high iron levels varying widely. It can have levels of all kinds of different things in it. That's why the well companies make certain recommendations for treatment. One of the things that, as the conversation goes on about Ausblick, from what I do know about wells, I would venture to guess that their wells are, given their high capacity, are probably down in a very deep aquifer. I can't say that by certain without looking at the well reports. More often than not, residential wells do not share that same aquifer. They're usually a shallower and a separate aquifer. But again, I don't know that for certain without looking at the well reports. So I think that covers most of the questions unless I missed something.
Joe thrown at you here.
Yep.
Oh, my question is, going back to the rezoning exhibit, it shows, and this is gonna come up when we get to the preliminary plat and the CSM for this thing. It shows that this is extending to the center line of Murray Hill. Does not the village of Lisbon own all the way to the east right-of-way line? This issue is going to be coming up.
My understanding all along was that this was a split jurisdiction road, but that's more of a question for the village of Lisbon. Maybe Mitch, you know offhand. Yeah.
I have a feeling it is shared.
I don't think it is because it shows up on the GIS, I believe, the Lisbon going all to the east right-of-way line. This is going to continue to come up for a long time because of the coordination between this proposed development and what's across the street. And
Which is our
I'm gonna
development
keep
as well,
bringing it
so.
up and up until we get this resolved, because I just bringing it up now so that we can get this resolved once and for all.
So when they submit their preliminary plat, that'll be something obviously that gets looked at. GIS, you can look at it all you
I
want,
know.
but it means get it surveyed. That's what that means.
Right.
So that's my comment on that. We will investigate that when we get all the rest of the
Okay.
information, so.
Because this is a big issue between the two developments, so that's the only question I have at this time, Mr. Chairman.
And we do have, Dan, or at least we have set roads that are Lisbon maintains responsibility for and Sussex does that are between the two communities. I don't know if this has been discussed or in recent years or not with the change.
No, I haven't discussed anything with Sussex. I'm looking at GIS. I see that village, this parcel particularly goes to the center line, but then the division line between Lisbon and Sussex is right down the middle of Mary Hill Road. So I guess I'm a little confused. The only difference is that Sussex shows a right-of-way dedication and Lisbon does not, but that will probably change once the preliminary plat or the final plat is filed, so.
One last question I have for the developer. Are you using the same engineering firm on both sides of Murray Hill?
We're actually using a different one on this
This
side,
run?
on the west side. We're using Trio Engineering. We use Trio Engineering and SEH regularly.
Okay, but who's doing the engineering on the east side?
On
For
the east
Vista Run.
side is SEH. On
Okay,
the Sussex side is SEH and
Yes.
Vista Run. Yep.
okay, unfortunately, because if we had the same one, it wouldn't be an issue, as much as an issue, okay.
Yeah,
Never
we've got no
mind.
problem coordinating them and we know that.
I understand that.
As we come out of, we are, for everybody, here's information. We are finishing off Vista Run, which is on the east side of the road this year, which means we will be bringing an access out to Mary Hill Road. And it's always been our knowledge that improvements to that access on Mary Hill Road would come over here for Lisbon to take a look at as well. So to make sure that the turn lanes and XL, decel, met both municipalities review. So.
And to be clear, we're looking, look at this parcel here, the northern portion is what you're talking about. The southern portion,
Yeah.
that's like I think a wetland banking
That's correct.
property.
Yeah,
So
the
that's not-
south, there's a drainage, kind of an intermittent, it's a ditch, but it really is kind of an intermittent stream. South of that has been pulled in as part of a DNR wetland reclamation bank. So I think they've got a pretty hefty deed restriction saying no development there for maybe forever. I'm not 100%.
I think I've seen that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's not going to change.
Yep.
So question for clarification. So tonight is just talking about public hearing about the rezoning, taking the agricultural A10 to R2 for this property. As far as the plot diagram, where the streets go, where cul-de-sacs are located, that'll be a future discussion.
There's a preliminary plat discussion, there, a different agenda item, there is a developers agreement, which is a different agenda item. And there's probably another step or two to the
Final plat.
but that's
Yep.
later,
And-
much later.
Yep, and all of those go through both the plan commission and the village board during public meetings.
So as far as the public, if they want to, they'll have the opportunity for citizen comments when those
Correct.
action items come up in front of the plan commission. So they can again come up in front of the plan commission and speak their concerns when those situations are going on. So right now, we're not voting on whether or not the roads will be where they are, the cul-de-sacs will be where they are, or the plot, the individual residents. That'll all be future meetings that will be held. Is that correct?
Correct.
Warren, is there a comment where the rezone is contingent on substantial?
I was gonna say, with
performance?
with the exception that we are saying that we want a future plat to be consistent with the site plan that's shown. So in regards to process, the comp plan amendment item that we previously had an opportunity for a public hearing and for comment on that. The rezoning tonight has a public hearing associated with it. The preliminary plat, which would be the next step potentially in this development process, there's no requirement for a public hearing for a preliminary plat. The final step would be,
Not to cut you off.
there's still a public meeting.
There's
The
still
plan
public meeting,
commission
there's still
still reviews
citizen
it.
comments at
There's-
the beginning.
There could be citizen comment at the beginning. There's opportunities for that, but it's not, it doesn't have a statutory requirement for a public hearing. And then there's the final plat, which is had just what's submitted for that just has to be substantially consistent with what was approved for the preliminary plat. So those are the formal steps in the process. And then there's the developers agreement, as we talked about, which gets approved by the board. The overall, opportunities again for citizen comment were the public hearing at the comprehensive development plan, which we did hear from folks for that tonight. And then the citizen comment portions of those plan commission meetings where we're discussing the other official layout of the preliminary plat that gets proposed and all of that. As far as the comments from the developer, I would concur that the village wants to see the road go through. The road was intended to go through and that subdivision was originally platted. The developer of that subdivision just didn't have control of this property, which is why these things get done piecemeal. They build the road to the property line so that when the adjacent farm field gets developed in the future, someone can continue it with a future development. And we're now considering that future development.
It's fire department, it's the police department, it's the DPW department, and it's school buses. I mean, everyone's in line, so.
Right.
I think what I'd like to do is you can see that, and Oren's pointed this out at previous meetings, that if you look at the plats from these other subdivisions, it's noted on there that they're going to go through. But who goes and does that? I mean, so I think maybe I've seen other communities preemptively have signs at the end of these roads. And maybe that's more in new developments. I've talked about this, I think, with Dan or maybe Elisa, but I mean, maybe we could do that so that it's not so much of a surprise, but we would probably take a big hit on notifying people of that's going to happen when we put up the signs. But this is a thing that we hear every single time, and that's your consistent response.
I was gonna add that we're gonna talk about it again later tonight if everybody sticks around when we talk about another property near here that's going to be developed residentially as well, where there's actually 3 roads that stub into it. So yes, this is an issue in a lot of different places in this community and other communities.
It seems to come up every time we have a road stub to a property. And my only ask here is that given this is a joint public hearing, plan commission, village board, is please, as a developer, give me direction as to whether you want it as, consistent with this site plan or something different.
That speaks to condition number.
So what-
2, condition 2.
there's a new members on the plan commission, at least 3 of us that were not here in 2023 when the conceptual plan was presented, but again, that's not a binding decision or feedback, but was what they presented at that point. So I'm one of the new members, and was that somewhat consistent with what was presented previously?
I can say that there were some different iterations of this layout than what's presented here tonight. One of the differences was that the developer was previously in discussions with Ausblick to potentially purchase some land over here where there's isolated natural resource area and actually bring this road into the development as well. And so that's no longer on the table because they're no longer proposing to do the land swap or purchase of land from Ausblick that would have incorporated this corner, of Ausblick's property. But that was being looked at. So that would have connected through as well, had that, maintained as part of their proposal. And there were some different iterations for how Lake Drive would be connected and where it would go to, but essentially, this is the layout that the developer has landed on, which is something that can meet the zoning and provide the connectivity that the village is looking for.
Just one question I had. When this original plat was reviewed at the planning commission, is there a reason why that cul-de-sac along Silver Spring Drive was not connected to Silver Spring Drive instead of creating a
There's
cul-de-sac?
actually a house that has access to Silver Spring, so that crest doesn't actually abut this parcel. But the right of way for Crest Drive doesn't abut this parcel. There's a house that has access to Silver Spring that's in between Crest and this development.
The house is too close to Silver Spring. In order to take Crest Drive through there to connect to this, would make that a non-conforming use of the house. The house is,
This
when it
house
was
here
built,
that I'm
was
pointing to
built
on the map.
closer to not allow that. That came up 3 years ago.
Okay.
And Silver Spring Drive itself is county highway jurisdiction. They would not allow an access because there we have Mary Hill and you have the other driveways. So along that section.
No, I was just making a comment because we were talking about safety, right? You want to have
Yeah.
2 accesses to residential properties, and that would allow a second access there. Right now, it's going to dead end in the cul-de-sac.
When
Brought
it's,
that up
when possible, yes, you do prefer to, but here we do have an example where a second access is not possible.
Are these roads gonna line up from across the street on Mary Hill when that's done? Or are they gonna
Yes,
be
yes.
staggered?
Court A will align with the road in the neighborhood across the street. Yeah, you actually can see it on the bottom of the drive. Yep.
All right, any other comments from plan commission members or village board members? Barry, do you have anything?
No, I do not.
Right, any other, yeah, you can come back up.
Can I say my name again?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
If you would, that would be great for
Sure.
purposes.
I'm
of the
Erin
minutes.
Young. I'm at N67W26335 Crest Drive. So 2 things. One is, can we respectfully request that more people are notified about these pending developments? This is a very rural area. The new developments are not going to make it so rural, but because we are rural, not many people are aware of it, and the community can't weigh in, if there's only a few homes being notified. So I would like to somehow make a request. I know that they're legally only allowed, you're only required, but is there a way that we can request that area be like 1,000 feet or something?
I can actually address that. So the statutory requirement is a 300-foot radius.
Right.
We exceed that and go to 500 feet.
Yes, I'm aware.
It's not efficient for our office to send out that many notices. The best advice that I can give you is go on Lisbon's website, click the notify me button, and you can set up your own account for our website and pick and choose what events you want to get notified for. You'll get an automatic notification anytime a plan commission agenda or village board agenda or whichever board committee or commission you're interested in has a new agenda.
Okay, so I understand that, but my question is can we make a request that that is expanded somehow, given the fact that we are very rural? There are not that many homes. There will be a ton of homes. I mean, it is
We
going
just
to
don't have the
change,
staff in our office for that.
okay.
There's only 2 of us that do it.
Okay, so I don't know if there's a way that the community can somehow work on that.
I mean, the 500, I mean, the 300 feet to the 500 feet that was discussed, I mean, in the last, comprehensive plan or rezoning or whatever that, I mean, that was discussed by the prior board and commissioners. I'm not sure how recently that had changed, but I think we've got a long history of going past the minimum, but we can't cherry pick for certain developments to do more. It has to be in line with what, our standard requirements are.
Okay.
Just for every time, right? We can't just do it 1,000 feet for this and then 200 feet for this one. We'd have to be 1,000 feet for everything if we did that.
I have a lot of communities that provide no mailed notice for rezoning, because actually the statute doesn't require mailed notice. It only requires a class 2 notice, which is a notice that goes on the website and on the front door here. So you're exceeding what the statute requires quite a bit by providing 500 feet.
I agree with that. My concern is the fact that within that area, there's 23 homes that got service. So that's not a lot of homes. That eliminates a lot of community involvement in these changes that are going to occur. These are big changes. They're not small. So that's my comment. I would like to know what we can do as a community to have more community involvement in things like this. Because it is going to be a big change. There's going to be a development across the street on Silver Spring. There's going to be a new development there. There's already a huge development on the corner of 164 and in Silver Spring. So I mean, this is a lot of change, and it's changing our area, which I understand has to happen. But I think more community involvement would be nice.
So I think what was spoken about before, and I can take this from my past experience, get involved, go on the website, click on it, notify me,
I have that.
pick someone up in your neighborhood that is willing to talk to other people, go out and have conversations with your neighbors, get them involved, ask them to participate. That's how the word gets out. So if there's a big concern for you, get notified and then make sure you have someone in your neighborhood that can reach out to your neighbors and let them know what's going on.
Right, any other public comments?
All right, we do have one hand raised on Zoom when you're ready.
Joan Plato. Some of the comments Brian made about the subdivision will be safer if they break through to Lake Drive and increase the traffic in Beacon Hills. It will not be safer for Beacon Hills. We have so much traffic already from all the subdivisions. I don't see how that could be safer. Another thing is with opening this up, we will also have traffic from Osblick passing through, so that will affect our traffic even more. I also have a question. What school district will this new subdivision be using? Will it be Arrowhead District
Yeah,
or
that
Hamilton?
doesn't change at all, but I believe it's Arrowhead. I think Mary Hill is the dividing line.
Well, that's not true because the house that faces Silver Spring, where Crest Drive.
It jags
yeah.
there, I know, on the north
Yeah,
side of the street.
that's Hamilton.
So, but Lisbon has no say over that whatsoever.
Okay, but reference with the school bus has never gone down Lake Drive in the 45 years I've lived there. And if they're Hamilton, why would the school bus have to go down Lake Drive?
I think he was using that as an example of why streets go through, not
Okay,
specifically.
but that
this
doesn't
one.
make it safer that makes it more
It
dangerous.
makes it more accessible.
The other thing, back to the water issue, on Lake Drive, the road has flooded out many times and washed out because of the way the rainwater comes down the hills and washes out the road. We've been underwater many times with that as well, and called the village on it, and the village really hasn't responded much to our water issues. So I don't know what they're gonna do with this new subdivision because they are also at the bottom of a hill. Thank you.
We'll pass those comments on to our stormwater, engineer and our highway department, to make sure that they're aware of that. Anyone else who has not made a comment yet that would like to speak tonight? Could, if it's the other development, there's a citizen comments during the beginning of the plan commission meeting. That's where we'll take you. So on this specific issue, is there anyone who has not spoken tonight?
There's a hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, Sarah on Zoom, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to address a couple things regarding the developers' comments about a burden on the traffic on Lake Drive. I would argue that it would be a burden along with what Joan was explaining. I'm the second house from the dead end, and I can sit there all day and watch the cars race up, realize it's a dead end, turn around and race right back. And if it's a through street, they're gonna just race all the way through and never slow down, which is gonna be an issue for the kids in the neighborhood in our side and then also the new development side. I think a good option that should be considered, is I know the city of Pewaukee has several of them where they're access gates where, okay, it's paved and vehicles can get through if they need to, like highway maintenance, police, fire departments. They have access to open that gate, but it keeps regular citizen vehicles from racing up and down the roadway. I think that's something that we should consider. I don't think any of us are saying, no, stop this development. We don't want it to happen at all. We know that it's going to. It's just a part of progression of our village. It's going to continue to grow. We're just asking for a little bit of compromise. I think one of the major issues, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the major issues of the citizens that are there tonight is that it is a through roadway, which is one of my concerns as well. All I'm asking is that we consider a compromise, because like I said, we're not saying no, we're not saying don't build there, we don't want you to build there. We get it, it's gonna happen. Just give us a little bit of leeway to let us continue to live in the community that we live. They're gonna have their own area with their HOA and what have you. We're not part of that HOA. So let us be ourselves, and they can be their selves. And if we need an access gate to allow fire, police, highway maintenance to get through, then let's do that. That sounds like an awesome option, because then it's allowing them to get through without letting the traffic come through. Another thing I just wanted to bring up, a question, and maybe that's something that the developer can help, maybe that's something the council can help, is just a time frame of, okay, if this is approved and the next steps continue to be approved, what is the estimated time of breaking ground? Just give us an idea. Are we looking at 2027? Are we looking at later in 2026? Just to kind of.
Earlier said spring of 26.
I'm sorry?
Okay. It was stated earlier by the applicant that they're targeting spring of 26.
Spring of 26. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't know that if it was brought up because I kind of jumped into the meeting slightly late. And I know it had been discussed about sending out letters to within 300 feet or 500 feet or whatever it is. It's my understanding that we're supposed to get those notices within 10 days of the hearing. Is that correct?
So it's published in the paper for the 2 weeks prior to every public hearing. I don't know if you heard Attorney Larson's comment a few moments ago. There is no statutory requirement that notices be mailed any longer.
I guess because I was reading on the website that it was like 10 days notice to with those being mailed out.
We try to do it within 10 days, but we can't guarantee.
Okay. I think that's, again, another issue is, the notices that, at least the notice that I received was dated May 5th. It was postmarked May 20th. So it's that for 2 weeks. And I understand of staffing and what have you, but that gave us, I received it then on the 22nd through my mail. That gave us 6 days to coordinate with our community, be able to talk to people, get them involved. That gave us 6 days. And we would love to do that, but we kind of need a little bit more time. I think that I would ask that we table this hearing until the next hearing when we can have appropriate notice, which is more than the 6 days that I got. We can have more time to consult with the DNR. We can have more time to consult and review the information regarding the water table before we just say, okay, we're going to make this residential, is what I am asking. That's all.
All right.
that.
Warren, can you bring up the site plan again? I certainly, for the neighbors here, I understand your concerns for traffic. I cannot stand up here and say that there won't be added vehicles on the road and it won't have an impact on you. Well, but the net benefit to the community as far as traffic flow, like we've mentioned, fire safety, school buses and so on, is why communities design roads to connect. At the top of that screen, if you can scroll down a little bit, Oren, we have proposed a little bit of a boulevard within the stretch of road solely for traffic calming. If that is something that the village will allow when we get to a design stage, you know, that in my mind is something that can be done to at least, you know, calm traffic, you know, force people to kind of slow down a little bit. Yeah, I would not advocate for an access gate.
Anyone from the Plan Commission have any more comments or questions, or the board? So Eric, what is?
Typically at a public hearing, you get one chance. We've been generous with people letting them come back. The petitioner, though, gets an opportunity to respond. And so that's why we've heard from the petitioner several times so they can respond. I guess I'll leave it to the chair whether we want to continue to hear from everyone again and again, but typically I'm saying that it's one time to be heard.
So I guess what I'm gonna do in the future, and please remind me, everyone, that I need to make that part of my comments at the beginning of the public hearing, that everyone gets one crack. So since I did not say that tonight, I mean, we won't be strict on that tonight, but moving forward, we'll make that announcement and we'll stick to that. So give me an elbow if I don't say that in the future. So this would be, again, no more repeat comments, except come on up and
So as
but you don't get a third crack, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Can you
Hey,
just state your name for everyone on
Lauren
Zoom, please?
Mullendor. Yep.
Thank you.
This is my first single family home I've ever owned. I'm a young person with a family. I don't know how village politics work, right? So the last time that I came here I didn't get the first, I live right next door to them and I didn't get the first notice. And I was told by somebody in their neighborhood, which is great. But I don't know how any of this works. And at that meeting, which I think was just at the end of April, we were given the opportunity, because it is really difficult, I think, when you come up here and you list a bunch of questions or comments, then when you guys or the developer answers those questions, there's follow-up questions. So I guess I don't understand how that's supposed to be a full comprehensive
I think
process.
at the last meeting, when you spoke, we said if you had any questions to follow up with staff. So if you had questions prior to, you could always contact myself. You can contact
Yeah.
Elisa. And we can either try and answer those questions or if not, direct them to the planner to try and get you a response. And that's probably the best way to go forward instead of asking questions and then getting answers and then asking more questions, we can get some of that stuff done prior to the meeting, easier for you and easier for staff and for the commission as well.
Yeah, I wish we could just ask the question, then you would give the answer, and then I can continue to ask the question. I guess that's part of it, but, cause like, I'm not gonna
It
get an
doesn't
answer.
work that way, unfortunately, but.
You guys, and I can contact you, I'm not gonna get an opportunity to ask him a question again. And he didn't answer my question. Is there a reason that the subdivision can not be laid out the same as it is with Crest Drive? I get your very general arguments that you're using for every development that you do, but we're talking about our specific, this plan right here. We're not talking about general. So that's why the question about the school district is important, is because in this case, school buses are not going to be going down this because these are probably going to be two different school districts. So it's really not a valid argument for this development. So I would like to know, and I don't know, maybe you can give me your card and I can call you another time. That would be great. But I think that's why it is specific to this discussion. And it's not just for a general argument. I think it's also important to point out, Sarah didn't say it, but she is a police officer. So if anybody understands the requirements of first responders better than anybody, she understands, right? So no, when we are talking about two major roads being Silver Spring and Mary Hill, and you're cutting the corner on that, when we think about the safety level of like how often first responders are required out in this rural area versus how often there are traffic incidents due to speeding, like this little like slow down, it's gonna be more fun for the teenagers in the area to just go faster on that route. So am I understanding correctly? My question is, am I understanding correctly? As he had said, as long as he follows the steps in this plan that are laid out, it will happen, is what he stated. And then that there is no requirement for public hearing after this rezoning decision is made. As long as, once this decision is made, as long as he follows the steps and they lay it out, you guys want the through road, like, this is it.
As far as public hearing is concerned, again, there's public meetings and there's a chance for the citizen comments at the beginning, but not the same back and forth dialogue with the formal public hearing. And again, they're not guaranteed to get exactly what they want, but once the land use plan is changed and the zoning is changed, there are certain assurances that they have that if assuming they meet other requirements, that the development would go through. But there could be some design changes, there could be some other issues that would be discussed by staff and the commission and the board that could be insisted upon by the staff or the boards.
So I hear you that the road is not what we're here to discuss tonight, and so we won't talk about that anymore, but I do think that it's very important that you consider the agricultural demand on this area. Joan didn't go into it as deeply as she probably could have, and I wish her husband were here because he has gone around and around and around with the village already with the water levels for that have been caused and changed because of Ironwood Golf Course. So I really do think that when we consider that we are rezoning this from agricultural to residential, I hear you saying like, this is not a well drilling expert decision, but it really is. Are those blue? Are those all retention ponds that plan to be put in?
Yes.
Okay, so, I mean, you are hearing from actual residents.
If I say retention or stormwater management.
Yeah.
I
So-
caught myself.
I mean, you have residents here who are telling, when you talk about the flow of traffic being better for residents, you have a whole group of residents that are telling you, no, this is not what we want, that we do not want an increased flow of traffic in the same way that we don't want further water issues than what they've already experienced. So I would implore the village, the board, to take in consideration before approving this rezoning tonight, to do a little bit more research on the requirements and what information was included in these DNR studies and how that will affect the current land.
We're still trying to feel each other out and get everything, but Mitch, is the stormwater, is that your end of things?
Waukesha County actually has jurisdiction over that, but we do review that as well.
Okay. So, jump in here, but the requirements are that there is no more water that flows off this site after the development than before the development.
Yes, that's correct. Yep, they're controlling peak flows. So the goal of their design is to hopefully reduce it, but they can't exceed what the current peak flows are along the site, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously controlling overflow, but then to the point, the draw on the land as well. I guess I'm not sure who, if it's not you guys, who does
The
sort of.
stormwater and wells are, I guess, are two different issues. And I think
Yeah,
that we were addressing stormwater there with that comment. And then the wells, again, that's more the state. Again, and Eric made note of that. We will, probably incorporate something into the developers agreement that there's some notice. If that concern is considered to be sufficient or legitimate, to the extent that we can factor that in. We're aware of it and it'll be factored in by staff moving forward.
well, I think those were my comments. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comments? All right, come on up. I'm guessing the same address, but please state your name and address for the record.
My name is also Aaron Young. Live at North 67 West 26335 Crest Drive. There's been a lot of discussion. I'm not familiar with my neighbors to the south of us, the water issues they've had. But we were told many times that this conservancy, they will never build here. In fact, we were told that we are the two newest homes on the end of Crest Drive, and we've had water issues from day one. My sump pump was running every 30 to 45 seconds, 24/7. The first 2 years I was there, and I thought my well or whatever was leaking till we had a drought and determined, okay, it wasn't a leach within my property. And the farming property in the C1 directly behind us, the farmer had not, we moved in 2011. And my local residents told me that they hadn't farmed that in so long because they couldn't get their equipment. They get stuck and get buried. And it wasn't until approximately 9 years ago, that the farmer had tiled the entire property, that it quit the ponding where he could further go back to farming. So our concern was that too, is that this conservancy was always our understanding that it's too wet. We're on too high water table. I'm the lowest house and have had major water issues myself on Crest Drive. So the question is, if we rezone to this residential, is there going to be further intrusion into this conservancy? Are there plans for that in the future? Is this going to creep, into further development? I guess that's my question is there a future? Just want to iterate our concerns with this conservancy, the water issues we had, now hearing from our other residents across the way. I would just ask again that there be a sufficient study, again, I don't know if that's through DNR, private consultation, where that this board take into serious consideration, that this doesn't just forge ahead on some timeline, but take all these factors into true consideration of, again, the current residents. We've been here now for 14 years, going on 15. We love our community and our neighborhood. And we too, just as my wife mentioned earlier, have seen an increase. We've never had issue with wildlife. We've had wildlife, but coyotes have never been an issue. I go out every night with a shotgun and a spotlight to protect my dogs. And I got 2 big German Shepherds. And I've seen packs of 5 and 6 and more in the field, encroaching, coming on our property, stealing our toys off our property from our dogs. But every night it's a game of get the spotlight out and have a shotgun in hand, because that encroachment, further development is pushing wildlife. I don't know if our.
In our yard,
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to DNR about this and just reported more sightings. Because it's become I've never been too concerned for my animals. They can hold their own, but it's become a serious problem. So I guess going back to, the real question is there going to be continued or future development if this rezoning is moved forward, and what is I'm not even sure exactly where that line is, where this housing development stops, how far it encroaches into our backyard per se.
That's why I have the parcel highlighted in blue there. So the property in question has the blue boundary there around it.
That's the development.
That's the proposed parcel to be developed. So
Okay.
that is not what's
So the
behind your
gray area-
residence. This one that I just highlighted now is the parcel that's behind your residence, I believe.
Correct. And as of
From
right
your
now, there
description.
is no plans to build up to Lake Road in that zone.
This is not.
Cause I was told they wouldn't be able to build there.
This is not part of the development proposal, and the property is almost entirely zoned C1, which means that it's all either farmed wetland or it's, you know, an area that couldn't be developed. So there's different rules for farming
Mhm.
than there are for single-family residential development.
I don't know if that then is an appropriate question at this time. Is this piece of land gonna be continued to be farmed? Is that a fair question, or?
Is that the same property owner as your, I guess I'd never.
Okay. I guess that's pretty much
Yeah,
it, you know,
and I didn't pick up
zoning
until the end that that's what
and
we
my
were talking
concerns
about.
with the water table as well as my neighbors. And the impact of the wildlife around us has been pretty significant. So.
All right, I think the developer can respond to that point.
Yeah, to answer the question, yes, it's same ownership. As part of our purchase, we will be buying the parcel that is not being proposed for rezoning because as was mentioned, it's currently C1. It does have high groundwater. There's a lot of reasons something gets a C1 placed on it a long time ago. I will say additionally, that parcel that's behind your property was platted as part of the Beacon Hills neighborhood, and there's a deed restriction on it that no structures for habitation may ever be placed on it. So.
You said our houses shouldn't have been built.
Yeah.
They're there.
So if that deed restriction, I mean, that's a binding deed restriction. So you're buying it for open space or
It's
for?
it's open space. As far as if it will continue to be farmed, I don't know. As long as Meisner farms locally, he may want to farm it, but.
You say you're going to buy that parcel?
We are buying that parcel. Yes, that's correct.
So,
Not currently, not as part of the development because it is already platted as part of the Beacon Hills neighborhood. It already exists. It has had no benefit or detriment to the neighborhood we're applying for.
so you have to direct your okay, so we're
Yeah.
not, I mean, so the formal process is that questions get directed up to us and then the developer can respond. And so if you want to take questions afterwards
I
with
guess,
individuals, you
just to
can.
kind of continue on, what is a conservancy and what does it mean? I mean, that's a zoning designation that the Village of Lisbon has created. It does have a lot of restrictions as to what can and can't be done there. So when something is in conservation, it limits the use. No homes can be built on it unless it's applied to be changed. If one were to apply to change C1 here, it would be up to this board to determine that, but we'd also have to show that something could be built there. There's reasons why we are not proposing that because it is all wetland and environmental corridor. As far as drainage and other things and water issues, the amount or the requirements that exist today from the county and the DNR as far as soil testing, for high groundwater, soil testing for stormwater control, soil testing for private septic systems are really far more stringent than they were 10 or 15 years ago. So it does take into account offsite water flows. It takes into account where the water is headed after it leaves this site. So I think, the county, Waukesha County in particular, has a very, very well qualified staff that looks at that stuff.
All right, if we're done with comments, I'll close the public hearing. There's no new comments from anyone? What?
Ma'am, you'll have to step up to the podium.
Are you gonna let her speak?
So if you. All right, so this is, keep it to 30 seconds, please.
How can they buy property from Beacon Hills without residents of Beacon Hills being informed?
It's not a property of Beacon Hill.
Okay,
It's owned by
you just
private.
said it was Beacon
it's-
Hills.
It may be part of the subdivision plat, but it's owned by a private individual.
Hickory Hill Farm.
which is the same entity that owns
Okay.
this property, which is the
All right.
same entity that owned the land across.
So
America.
that little blue spot was not on the original plans. Did this just take place?
No, we're only tonight talking about what's highlighted
Okay.
in blue. That's,
All right.
that's the only thing that the plans affect.
Okay.
My question is if C1 is rezoned to R2, does that open the door for development, for one? And secondly, when the other homes are developed, how does that impact C1?
Maybe I can take a stab at that. So for this development, there's no proposal to change any of the C1 zoning. That's part of what the developer has done through their due diligence with having an assured wetland delineator come out, is to make sure that the C1 district boundary is accurate in relation to the wetlands that are out there. So they're not proposing to rezone away from C1 as part of their development. That will remain for the areas that have wetlands on them. And it is a conservancy zoning district, as the developer stated. The C1 district does not allow any structures to be built in it. Basically, you can look at it, you could walk through it if you wanted to, that's about it. It's intended to be protected. So there's also an environmental corridor that goes through the parcel that follows the waterway that flows through. That will be protected as well as part of this development. Environmental corridors do provide space for wildlife. Maybe that's not a good thing from some of the comments we've heard about the free flow of coyotes in the area, but the corridor does provide space for wildlife. That's one of the things that it's intended to do. The Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission decides where those are located. And the consultant that the developer hired, I will just state, is qualified to delineate those and worked with Sewer PAC staff, specifically Chris Jors and his staff, to make sure that his determinations were correct and agreed upon by all parties. So again, that was part of the due diligence that was done. That is only for the property that's highlighted with the blue boundary on the GIS currently. Nothing was looked at in the Beacon Hills subdivision or the adjacent parcel as part of this development.
All right, thank you for the response. If we're done with public comments, we will close the public hearing at 7:52. And we will move on to citizen comments. If there's citizen comments regarding the items on tonight's Plan Commission meeting agenda, you can step to the microphone and state your comments and limit your presentation to 3 minutes and one correct.
Ray Growth, address W265 and 6944 Thousand Oaks Drive. I am questioning on the development across Silver Spring. The last hearing, we expressed our concerns about we have to pump a pond and we have to pump it across the proposed road. And I'm wondering what the solution is on how we're going to continue pumping our road and our pond now that you're continuing that road through and breaking the 30-foot easement that appears on the subdivision ordinance.
I think that'll come up during the planners and/or engineers or staff's comments. So we'll make sure to address that. Any other citizen comments on items on tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is approval of the meeting minutes. Item 4A is approval of the public hearing and Plan Commission meeting minutes from March 26, 2025, and then B is April 23rd, 2025. Take a motion together or separately.
I'll make a motion to approve A and B.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Sherry was nice and laudable, but had a second come in. Rob made the motion, Sherry seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. All right, motion unanimously carries. Item 5A is discussion and necessary action on the request of Brian Schubler. I'm always gonna be terrible with names.
Bible.
So I'm sorry. With Plunkett Reichek Architects on behalf of the Hamilton School District for a site plan of operation amendments to construct an addition to the existing storage garage on the Hamilton High School parcel located at W 220 and 6151 Town Line Road, Lisbon tax key number 0241.997. You can step up, and then Orin, do you want to start with your presentation?
Yeah, I'll just give a brief summary here. So this is a proposal for a site plan of operation amendment for an addition to an existing garage building, which I'm zooming in on now. So this is located behind the school on the west side of the school. Oh, I should share. Bear with me one moment. I'll share my screen. Here we go. All right, let me zoom back out for context. Okay, so here's the high school parcel off of Town Line. The last time that the district was before us for a site plan amendment, they were proposing an addition on the south end of the cafeteria in this location and on the west side of that cafeteria. And today we're talking about an addition to a garage that's located behind the school over here by the athletic fields. This is a roughly 1,675 square foot addition, accommodating an expansion to the existing garage that will provide space for additional storage for the technology education department. That is the long and short of it. There's really no other proposed changes. This doesn't impact much on the site. There were like 5 parking spaces. Those aren't necessarily utilized by students. I think those were utilized by the district for their vehicles.
Correct.
So those will be reduced from 5 to 2. Again, doesn't really impact staff or student parking on the site. The overall look and feel of the addition will match the existing garage that's there. And the architect's representative for the project is here, Brian Scheibel, if there's specific questions for him.
All right, anyone from the Plan Commission have any comments or questions?
What's the size of the existing shed?
It's continuous. It's about, if I can remember, 4 or 5 stalls, and we're just adding another 16-foot garage with or 2 16-foot garage doors with a swing door, just to expand storage and usage for technology education department for storage of materials.
So it's going to be connected to the existing shed, but
Correct.
separate. It's not going to have a shared area.
No, we're just adding on to the existing building. That current exterior wall becomes an interior wall, so it won't be a continuation of the space interior wise.
All right, Sherry, any questions or comments?
No, thank you.
And I don't think anyone, or Joe, did you have something? No?
Good, thank you.
All right, if there's no additional discussion, is there a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approval the site plan of operation for Hamilton High School, tax key LSBT 02419997, as presented to include planners and engineers' comments.
Is there any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And Sherry, you said
Aye.
aye? All right, so the motion unanimously carries. Thank you very much. I think that's all we needed.
All right, thank you.
Item 5B is discussion and necessary action on the request from the applicant, Newman Developments again on Hickory Hill Farms to rezone the parcel known as LSBT 224999003 from A10 UC and C1 to R2 PR UC and C1, and make a recommendation to the village board of the same.
I don't have anything to add from our previous conversation unless there's specific questions from the plan commission. I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Was there anything else that we left? I don't think there was there? No. Anything else from the? I mean, just to, I mean, I know there's a lot of issues that came up, but the one on the through streets, I think just needs to be kind of not ignored, and I mean, I know that we always get that, and it's just, I feel for the people there, but long term, they just, I mean, they need to be connected. So that's, I mean, that will become through on the other plans, but effectively, the rezone shows that there's other restrictions that we have that address that. And everything else, I mean, that could be addressed during the development and the preliminary plat staff is aware of, and we'll work with the developer on. Is there any additional discussion before, or we can entertain a motion on this item? For a motion, the options are approve, deny, or table. There's no.
I'll make a motion to go forward with rezoning.
Go forward, you mean motion to
New business,
approve.
item 5B. To, on behalf of the Hickory Hill Farms, to rezone the parcel known as LSB 20224.999.003 from the A10 agricultural, UC upland corridor, and C1 conservatory districts to the R2 single family residential and PR park and recreational, UC upland corridor, and C1 conservatory districts, and recommendations to the village board of the same, including the planner's comments.
The recommendation is for approval. You're recommending approval to the board.
Right.
In the motion. Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll make a second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is
That
there
was Kurt and Eberly, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Later on down the plans, then we can figure out the roads connecting, or if you do a speed bump or a gate or something. All for later on.
If you don't want that road to connect, now would be the time to address it.
I guess I'd want to look into some of those options. See, you know.
I guess I'm a little confused because that road isn't part of what we're discussing here. We're just talking about changing it from agriculture to R2. We're not approving a plot plan here.
Aaron, can you
That's,
clarify
that is true, but the conditions of approval that are in the motion include a condition that it would be platted consistent with this plan. that was presented.
I'll read it. It's condition number 2 in both staff review. Page 2 of that says, subject to the Village of Lisbon's approval of a final plat in substantial conformity with the proposed site plan.
So there can be changes, but it has to be substantially similar to what's proposed.
So if we do this, it has to be the same.
And you could, go ahead, Eric, you.
Well, if you don't want to make the decision on that road tonight, you could table this, or you could further condition it and say, subject to reserving the question of whether that road will connect to the time of consideration of the plat. So that would be amending your motion.
I mean, I'm open to that amendment because I think, well, needs to be some discussion about where that road needs to connect to the existing. And I think there were other discussions about the storm water drainage. And again, I'm not sure if that's part of the plot plan or if that's something that can be discussed later, but I think making sure that the stormwater is addressed, the traffic flow, and then the connection of that street.
So we're looking at pretty much at just the through road here as being the issue. Because everything else does get, I mean, needs to be addressed irregardless.
Yeah, they will follow through the stormwater management plan with Waukesha County. Mitch will review those plans. So if you want to address the road issue, I would recommend amending your motion as the village attorney has suggested.
The stormwater study has not been done yet for this.
I don't, have you guys done a stormwater management plan at this time?
Only preliminary, and I would just reiterate, it's, the village of Lisbon is assigned that jurisdiction in the county, Waukesha County. Over stormwater.
But it will be done.
Absolutely.
Or it has to be done and approved, right?
Yeah, and if it fails, then that cancels the plans for some reason.
Okay.
We can't disturb the site without an approved erosion control stormwater plan.
It just appears there's a lot of water flow from Osplick Ski Hill into this area that needs to be addressed if we're putting a subdivision in and we're putting residents' homes in this area. Because of the water table, it's going to be a concern. So I want to make sure that that's addressed.
Yeah, that'll certainly be addressed. So I guess the issue is the roads. There's a motion on the table and that's been seconded. I mean, there's been a lot of other long-term plan commission members here that have discussed and debated these three through roads. Sherry, do you have anything you want to add on that topic at this point? Versus, you know, long cul-de-sacs versus through roads, or Joe or Brian?
Well, first of all, we've got to deal with the motion we've got on the table. If you're going to amend your motion, then you need to amend it, and I need to agree or not agree with that amended motion before we get on to other things.
Well, we can still debate it, and this is part of, I mean, the motion affects that, so. Again, my personal feelings is that I'm sensitive to the concerns, and I think they're legitimate concerns. But if you don't approve the through roads and you have two cul-de-sacs, there's other concerns. And, you know, we'll talk with the highway department, the police department, and the fire department, and they'll all be opposed to that. The school district, obviously not necessarily, but they're gonna have to somehow come in and turn around or go through, even if it's not. So I feel for it, but I'm going to be in favor of that going through based on what I've heard from staff and others in the past. So if there's enough people that, I mean, obviously you can amend the motion or we can move forward if we know that there's 4 people that feel the same or not.
Kurt, just for clarification, as far as the process goes, they're coming forward with a rezone, but they're coming forward with this first before they take the next step. So they want to isolate the zoning before they go to the county and, you know, pay a $60,000 stormwater permit or whatever it is and go through all the required steps, ensuring the rezoning helps them to then move forward.
So I guess the options we have is cul-de-sac, through road, speed bump, or this gate idea. Those are like the 4 things that would happen there.
Brian, do you have anything you want to, and let's just go down the line here, because I think there's 2 people that are hesitant. Brian, you've been on the plan commission for a long time. What are your feelings on this?
As much as this is gonna be unpopular, but it should be a through road because it was meant to connect. It was meant to be a through road. A gate is, in my opinion, out of the question. We don't have any gates in Lisbon anywhere else, and I think it would be a problem if we did. So my vote is for a through road. It's meant to be a through road. The end of my subdivision was a through road and was developed. That's just the way it is. And I know that's unpopular.
Sherry, do you have anything? I mean, can you speak on this topic?
Yes, I have no problems with the through road, but I do have concerns with the staff recommendation number 2, that this approval includes a final plat that's substantially in conformity with their proposed plan when we haven't even discussed a preliminary plat yet. Because I do have other comments on this plan that don't relate to the road and would not affect the zoning. Such as some of their septic drain fields are way too, are on property lines and not the 20 feet off a property line, things like that. So I'm concerned that's a discussion for the preliminary plat, not a proposed site plan, but the proposed site plan shouldn't be tied to the approval of the zoning.
And I would consider substantial conformance, those are, Warren, correct me if I'm wrong, but smaller adjustments, having a road go through a subdivision or not is a major change to,
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted, like I said, the way it's worded, I'm concerned that other things are going to be assumed.
So
that
I think what was contemplated was density and number of lots. As far as why this condition was brought about in the first place, so that we're tying the idea of the rezoning to something visual.
We don't have a copy of the concept plan in our packet for tonight. That's referred to as item number 2 of your review.
It's the last page. Second to last page.
Not in mine. There's nothing here other than the legal description.
I had notes written.
Apologies.
Oh, my packet's on the last page.
I don't have one. And I just checked.
It should have been in what was sent, what was emailed. It might not have ended up in your print versions that Elisa.
Because that wasn't part of their submittal, so that's why it was not included.
Yep. So here's what I'll say about the road part of it. If something is different with the road, it could impact the layout of the lots, which could have a ripple effect. And so you can approve the rezoning without condition number 2. You can strike condition 2. That's a possibility.
Well, let me propose a different possibility. The reason that condition 2 is there is it's to bind the developer, not to bind the village. It's to say you're not going to come forward with some crazy new idea that we never contemplated when we rezoned this land. We were given a general concept that was okay when we rezoned it, if you do. And so my suggestion is that to address that concern, you would modify condition 2 to add the following at the end of it, to say, except as modified by the village board in its review of the preliminary plat and final plat.
Reviewed by the plan commission?
By the plan commission.
Well, the plan commission and the village board, I guess, the plan in their review of the preliminary plat and final plat.
That would give us the ability to review the options again, potentially about through road or doing something else with it.
It would, yes.
So do you want, Kirk, do you want to amend the motion to add that language suggested by the attorney?
Well,
We've had enough discussions. The procedurally, what we should have is a motion to amend the main motion. And it would be to add that phrase that I just read to condition number 2.
Is there a motion to amend the motion to add that language?
Specifically to add to exception, condition?
Yeah, yes.
Do I need to make that?
Anyone can make that motion to amend.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to amend.
All right. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second
I'll second it.
Yeah. Hang on, who is the second?
Sherry.
It was Sherry. And then you, Eric, do you want to go ahead and read it again?
Yeah. So the motion to amend is to modify condition number 2 in the planner's report to add the following to the end of it. Except as modified by the Plan Commission and Village Board in their review of the preliminary plat and final plat.
All right. So is there any discussion on the motion to amend the motion?
I think, yes, I like to make a comment. I think that's not a proper idea or a good idea because we don't have, we're chasing our tail, for want of a better term, around in a circle. We don't have a concept plan here that shows the connection to that street. That to me is what is failing this whole thing. We're gonna chase ourselves around regardless of this. We can't do anything tonight at all. We're gonna have to do it at the next plan commission meeting at the earliest notice that has all the information, which has a concept plan that shows the connection, and then we can vote on this up or down, which would include the rezoning. Otherwise, we're just going around in
Joe,
circles.
the proposed site plan that was reviewed by the Plan Commission during the conceptual review is up on the screen. It is on the online packet and was put in there for reference.
Is there
And
any other
that does show the through road.
discussion on the motion to amend the motion? All right, so again, Eric, one more time, could you read that language that you have there?
Yes, so the motion to amend modifies the condition number 2 in the planner's report by adding this phrase to the end of that condition. Except as modified by the Plan Commission and Village Board in their review of the preliminary plat and final plat.
That allows us to address all those issues. So is there any other discussion on this motion to amend the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion carries 6-1. All right, now have the motion to approve with that additional language. Discussion on that motion. Joe or Sean, I think you're the two that did not necessarily address the road, although it's become less of an issue now. So if you want to make a comment now, or if you want to save it for the next meeting, that's up to you, but the developer may appreciate some feedback. Right.
Motion. I don't hear one coming. Somebody gonna make a motion?
No, there is a motion.
The motion, there's a motion to approve that, and then that motion was amended. So the motion is on the table.
Okay, I'm not seconding the motion, is what I'm trying to say. So therefore, somebody needs to second the amended motion.
It has been, the motion was made and seconded.
The original motion needs to be seconded. I'll second the original motion.
No, Eric, this is a unique process that people probably have been, so go ahead.
You're navigating it quite well, actually. It's, so we had a main motion, it was seconded, it was discussed. After that happened, then there was a motion to amend the main motion, which was to add this exception to condition number 2. Procedurally, what has to happen then is you have to work backwards. And so you start with the motion to amend and you act on that. And that motion to amend was adopted. The vote was taken and it was adopted. And so then we're back to the main motion, which is still on the floor.
The main motion in its amended form.
In its amended form. So again, that had previously been moved and seconded and discussed. And so we're discussing the motion as originally made and as amended. That's what's before you.
I withdraw my second.
Well, it's the body's motion now. You can't withdraw it.
All right, any other discussion? All right, hearing none, everyone understands the motion that's on the table? If there's no additional discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Sherry, I didn't get you there.
I was an aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries 5-2.
Yep, got it.
All right. All right, we will move on to item 5C, which is discussion and necessary action on the request of this same applicant at Newman on behalf of David and Mary Beth Horn to approve a 2-lot CSM to divide the parcel located at North 68 W26098 Silver Spring Drive, Lisbon tax key number 0221.999.004, and recommendation to the village board of the same. Oren, you wanna start?
Yes. So this is a proposal for a two-lot certified survey map. Again, this is just north of the parcel that we were discussing on Silver Spring. The proposal is to divide off a chunk to the north, which is primarily zoned C1 for the Horn family to retain for hunting, is what's been described to us as their intent for the use of the parcel. And then the remainder of the parcel would be conveyed to Newman Developments for a proposed single-family subdivision, which we have on as an item coming up on the agenda. So the previous items that have taken place, we had a concept plan for the preliminary plat that Newman is considering developing on the southern portion of the parcel. And we had a rezoning for that as well. And so what's being proposed here is the two-lot CSM, again, to create that division that I just described. And then later we'll be discussing the proposed preliminary plat that Newman plans for the southern portion. So the couple of things that I just wanted to mention, the proposed lots meet the R2 district requirements. There are no, I should say lot 2 meets the requirements for that. There are no requirements for the C1 Conservancy District as far as the minimum lot size or average width. It's whatever is appropriate. In this case, again, the C1 Conservancy zoning would prevent someone from building on the lot 1 that's being proposed in this CSM. There are environmentally sensitive areas. Heartland Ecological Group did a wetland determination for the subject property. The field work was completed by an assured delineator. The wetlands encompass approximately 22 acres on the north side of the property. Subject wetlands are zoned C1 and part of a primary environmental corridor. There are preservation restrictions to preserve these wetlands included on the face of the proposed CSM, and then that it's for the southern portion gets carried through with the proposed preliminary plat for that development. The other thing I wanted to discuss was something that we discussed during the concept plan for the southern portion of this parcel, which is access. The petitioner is not proposing a street connection at Edgewood. The preliminary plat for the southern portion of the lot has connections proposed to the east, to the west, and a new connection to the south to provide the connectivity that was contemplated for this parcel. The Edgewood Drive was the location in question. That's in the Thousand Oaks Edition number 1 subdivision. There is no formal terminus for that. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in on that now. When I say formal terminus, I mean there's no formal cul-de-sac or through street or formal T turnaround that would meet the village's design requirements. Thousand Oaks Edition number 1 plat shows a temporary cul-de-sac easement on each of the lots over here on the north and south side. That would be lot 20 and outlot 1 respectively within that plat. The petitioner is proposing to make improvements to the existing pavement within the right-of-way on Edgewood to complete the formal T turnaround that would meet the village's design standards. There was an exhibit that was provided for that proposed improvement that should be in your packets.
So can you speak to that in a little more depth? Because I think that's a little bit confusing with the way it's shown with maybe the yellow highlighted versus the circle, at the end there.
Sure. Let me, just bring it up first here. Go back to the packet.
Obviously, the circle would be on other properties.
Right. So, there was a picture in the packet of what the end of the, dead end street looks like currently, which I have up on the screen. So, on the other side of the end of the pavement, there's a drop off and you have the wetland, which would be the northern lot of this proposed CSM, which is proposed to be retained by the horns. As far as the exhibit,
It's
Sir?
second page, maybe?
there we go. There it is. Okay. So I think what is shown here is an overlay. So you have the aerial photograph for what exists at the end of Edgewood Drive. You have the property boundaries for the adjacent parcels. And what's shown in yellow is a shape that was added that would meet the requirements of the village's design guidelines for a T-turnaround terminus of a right-of-way.
Does that really improve what is there right now?
It does. So I think what's being shown is that it's partially there, right? There's pavement that partially meets this, and that there would be additional pavement required, especially on the south end of the right-of-way to make the formal T-turnaround. And why is that important? It provides the proper turnaround area for village equipment and vehicles, and potentially improves turnaround ability for area residents and or delivery vehicles that serve the neighborhood, and all of those good things.
But we're short of a full cul-de-sac, which is what I think some people had expressed at earlier meetings.
Correct. This is a proposal for a T turnaround. So the temporary cul-de-sac easement that is there is not paved to the full extent of what a cul-de-sac would be. If you look at this aerial on the diagram, you can see that there's portions of the temporary cul-de-sac easement that are paved, but not the entire area of it.
You don't have enough right away.
The only way to make it a full cul-de-sac is either to acquire some land to the north and south or to extend it further to the east, and you'd be on the wetlands then.
Correct.
But so if we have an issue with the cul-de-sac versus the T, is it more appropriate to address that here under item C or item D?
Kind of relates to both.
Right.
So you might as well address it now. I can say that staff had some long conversations about this issue. One of the legal problems is we don't have a right to have a permanent cul-de-sac there. We don't have the property right. And the developer can't acquire that unless those owners voluntarily sell it to the developer. If we decided we needed to have a permanent cul-de-sac there, we would have to go through eminent domain if the property owners wouldn't willingly provide it. This T turnaround can stay within the right-of-way that we have. So it's within our legal rights to have that T turnaround. So it's somewhat of a compromise to allow that. Part of the conversation is, should we instead require the developer to run that road, Edgewood Drive, into their new development? Connect it. Again, we encounter some legal and practical problems. There's a wetland there. And so to run it and connect it through, as probably was initially thought to be the best idea when that land, the developed land, was created. it would mean somehow building a road in through a wetland. So again, as a staff, we're recommending this T turnaround. The developer's willing to do it, to, as I understand it, to build that turnaround into to a standard that meets our code requirements. And that is sort of the compromise permission solution that we're proposing.
Which I would hope or assume that most of, if not all of us, have been out there and have gone to the end of Edgewood Drive. I mean, this is really not making it much larger. I mean, the fact that the road pavement extends further to the north off of what is actually the right of way and goes further to the south. I mean, it's really that's canceling each other out. I know, I mean, this was in front of the Plan Commission before 3 of us were here, so, but I know that there was some people pushing for it to go through, some people pushing for more of a cul-de-sac. I like to have some consistency, but I realize this is the unique situation with the wetlands. Maybe you can't go through, but I think you could still do it on lot 1, and you wouldn't have to acquire any of third-party property. So I've got an issue with it, but where does everyone else stand, or does someone want to make a motion?
I've got comments. Number one is, it hasn't been proven that we can't extend that street through the wetland. And backing up one, my first question is, has that wetland been verified, given the engineer's comment and the time of the year that the delineation was done? We have to start at square one. That's first question. I mean, Mitch's comment is very valid. Have we gotten a written response to that question?
Yeah, Ryan Fritsch with Newman Developments. We do have a formal delineation report as of last week. So it was basically a confirmation of the field work that occurred in winter of 2024. They just come back out in the spring, and the line work that is shown on the CSM is essentially unchanged.
Okay, then my next question is, has anybody at all, from the developer's standpoint, looked at extending that Edgewood Drive into this development? Other than saying it's a wetland, you can't do it. That is not valid.
That is valid. Yes, there are very well-defined rules as to what does or does not meet criteria per the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers as to, you have to have a needs analysis done, you have to have an alternatives analysis done. And in consulting with the DNR, they said this, in no situation would this meet their requirements for a needs analysis. They look at this map and there are, I think, 5 homes maybe on Edgewood Road. So, in addition to that, I think it's very important to mention the legal aspect of this is a taking. So when forcing a developer or forcing a landowner to give up rights or improve lands, is a nexus requirement is not met, it's considered a taking, and therefore it becomes something that the village has to pay for.
Well, I disagree with you because I have done this. I've done this more than once.
I'd recommend a conversation with Attorney Larson then.
I don't.
So to Joe's point, I mean, if there's not a willingness or ability to do a cul-de-sac on lot 1, which is one option, then we can push for further attempts to put the road as a through road.
Well, there's more than 5 homes on Edgewood. There's Thousand Oaks subdivision on Edgewood, okay?
They're not on Edgewood Drive.
There's another means.
They're on Thousand Oaks Drive.
Forget the wetlands for 30 seconds. If the wetlands weren't there and Edgewood Drive was extended through this new development out to Brighton Drive or to Silver Spring, would more than 5 lots use that? We just went through a 30-plus minute discussion on the previous development of yours with all this list of reasons why we need to have through streets Then all of a sudden, 180 degrees, we change and say, oh, nope, we can't do it.
That's not accurate, Joe. The other two budding streets are being connected. And Edgewood Drive, as was mentioned at the time, there are situations and circumstances that you connect roads or you do not connect roads. The other example showed a road that had a cul-de-sac, for that reason. Yeah, this road, the only reason we're discussing it is because there's a note on the plat of Thousand Oaks that said that at some time in the future, a permanent termination needs to be made. Attorney Macy was here last time and he made it very clear that leaving it as is was not an option because it could be constituted taking of lands from those adjacent owners of which have pavement on their property currently. So the alternative is what can be done within the existing right of way. The wetlands issue is very relevant to this conversation. It's even a cul-de-sac on lot 1 there is far in excess of a 10,000 square foot threshold that the DNR applies. So the 10,000 square foot threshold is considered a minimal impact, and you still have to meet certain needs analysis and alternatives analysis to qualify up to that 10,000 square feet. Anything above and beyond that requires far more extensive hearings. It requires wetland mitigation costs, again, that I will again defer back to the village as when they get deemed unnecessary to become a taking. So, it's what we've proposed here to do the terminus as a T turnaround. It's not, maybe not what everybody desired, but it is really the only thing that is feasible and practical at the end of Edgewood Road. And it does, although the pavement profile may not appear to change drastically, it does change, it widens, it becomes more of a village standard, and it allows for things like plow drivers to turn around, emergency vehicles to turn around. And, it's existed like this for 50 years. That was that's really the DNR's opposition to any sort of wetland fill here is what changed to necessitate something different.
Well, I respectfully disagree with you. The other thing is, if it's determined that what is being proposed here for this new permanent T turnaround, then that work should also include the restoration of that area on those people's property.
Yeah, for the removal of payment within the temporary easement, that could be addressed in a developer's agreement, and that's generally part of the scope of improving a road.
Yeah, I agree with that. That is part of the concept, is this is creating a permanent T turnaround that's within the right of way, and any other improvements that are outside of the right of way have to be removed.
How many square feet would be an approved cul-de-sac?
Oh, it'd be a lot wider.
Yeah.
But he's saying 10,000 square feet. Is that a cul-de-sac bigger than 10,000 square feet? So it's close.
That's the pavement, that's not the right of way.
They would have the disturbance.
Disturbance would be 11. But what if it started on the existing right of way? So part of they call this, you want to.
Existing road, right.
Right, it
There's part
widens.
there that you could use.
Right, so you do it here, and you start it and then it goes out there, so part of it is there.
And you're out in the wetlands.
Well, I know, but we're talking about
But are you less than the
10,000
10,000 square feet?
You're still taking private property.
Right.
Yeah. You're still.
It's still part of the approval it's still part of the CSM for the property that we're subject to approval tonight.
But I think it's important to note, as was mentioned before, it's not something that can be asked for. There's precedent.
Then
There's
go
legal
back to what Joe
precedent
is
there.
pushing for, and let's push for the through streets.
The point
Also
is,
falls
John
under the same
Macy
criteria.
said because of
Yeah.
that, his opinion was that would be a taking. So therefore, the Village of Lisbon could not require the developer to do that.
To do what? To do what?
Cul-de-sac and to do a cul-de-sac.
Eric, I'm not gonna speak for John. You
It's
wanna-
shown on the Thousand Oaks plat as a temporary cul-de-sac. And so if we make it permanent, that would be the taking. It's changing it to permanent, we're taking a property right, and so that would have to be acquired. We'd have to buy it.
We're not talking about the property in Thousand Oaks. We're talking about using part of lot one,
We would still,
extending it into lot one.
Yeah,
And
that's,
that developer is here that's developing that property, right?
right. Then we have the wetland question.
Right, I understand.
And it also has a nexus question, Facet versus Brookfield that we've provided.
I understand what you're saying,
I
but you
think-
can't because it's a timing thing, because right now, one person owns lot one and lot two. And if you do this, then you're doing it like that, and that's therefore what happened in Brookfield.
Well,
Which
let
is-
me be clear. I think the same people own lot one and two. They want to divide them. So it's the original owner that owns lot one would have to give up that land if he wants to develop lot two.
Confused why we wouldn't have to do anything. If the original owner is keeping that land to himself and not doing anything with it, what's changed to make us even talk about this?
The question is the through road cul-de-sac or having this T?
Yeah, I can answer that. What's changing is the opportunity for a through road goes away with the development as proposed.
I just don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
So I think Joe and I mean, are in different places, but the same concerns. If there's 4 members that are fine with what is presented by the applicant, then we can more or less move on. If there's still concerns, then we should keep on discussing it. Where does everyone sit on this? I think.
I don't think there's any appreciable additional value by building a true cul-de-sac versus this T turnaround. My concern is getting Edgewood a through street into this proposed development.
So I think-
That's a completely different issue.
Everyone knows where you stand and I stand. Where does everyone else stand on this?
Good with the T?
Good with the T? Okay, that was staff's recommendation based on everything considered. Where are you at, Brian?
I would like to see it go through.
All right.
However,
I'm,
however, it's been that way for so long. I mean, at this point, does it really make a difference? What are we gaining if we do make it a through street? What are we gaining, I guess? I don't know,
Pressure
without
off
a
the number of
different
the other-
layout. I mean, I'm just trying to be practical. I would like to see it go through because I want to stay consistent with, hey, it's a dead end street. It was meant to go through. It was meant to connect the properties. It was meant to do it, but after all this time, and then if you do hook it up here, you're just getting out another access to Silver Spring. Or you're getting another access through another subdivision to Silver Spring. It's not going anywhere else, so I'm trying to be practical about it.
Yeah, and I'll say that there are 2 major things that have changed since this was platted 50 years ago. Wetland requirements and wetland rules for filling have drastically changed, which would prohibit this from being filled. And then various court cases have gone through, very much clarifying what was what's considered a taking by a municipality, when they can and cannot require improvements of a developer. And this would clearly meet, and I'm again in the.
well,
being-
I don't know if I buy that because
Yeah.
why don't we go back to the example of this other subdivision that you proposed?
Yeah.
And you come and propose a 1 acre CSM at the end of the road and then say, oh, now I can't put the through road in. I mean, that's the same concept that we're talking about right here. I mean, because this is under one ownership right now. The other I think you get what I'm saying. Let's just, I want to hear, maybe this is a non-issue if you have 4 people that are fine with the T. Sean and Sherry and Kurt, where are you guys at on this?
I'm with what Brian said about it going through, is that we have consistency. The question I have is, maybe I'm doing that. Is there a way, since it is under a single ownership, to work a swap for reclamation on this? Is that part of the parcel that's being considered for 810 being swapped, because you're only looking at a small triangle? I don't know what the square footage or how big that would be. Is there an option for a wetland reclamation on the property that's going to be rezone from A10 to R2.
This property isn't being rezoned.
Not yet, but I'm saying if it has been, is
So-
there a possibility for wetland reclamation as a swamp to,
That would probably need to be a DNR question. You know, can you destroy this wetland and, you know, dedicate some other wetland somewhere else from a land bank? It's not an issue that we would control. The DNR would be involved in that. And I don't know the answer. I don't know whether they would consider that.
Yeah, wetland banks are an entirely different criteria. You could ask the sellers of the land if they would consider it for a wetland bank. I don't know what their future plans are. They own additional land to the north of here that they're keeping.
But it shows on this proposed CSM that all of lot 1, except for a couple of square feet in the southwest corner, is all wetland, if this CSM is proper. There's no room to mitigate on lot 1.
No, mitigation isn't required within the same lot either.
Correct. There are options for buying credits, which would be at a bank that could be off-site, or there could be off-site mitigation that's not at a wetland bank. You know, in some communities direct where that off-site mitigation does need to take place. I don't believe Lisbon has any rules as far as that. I think it's just deferred to the DNR. So when you talk about a wetland disturbance, the question is, could a permit be obtained from the DNR to allow it? And what you're hearing from the developer is that it's his opinion that it could not. The question as far as the types of permits that the DNR will issue, it's easier to obtain a permit that is for a disturbance under 10,000 square feet. I think that was the point that the developer was trying to make. If you apply for a disturbance that's under 10,000 square feet, that is easier to obtain. There's a lesser test than if you try to propose something that is over 10,000 square foot disturbance. And our discussion was that if a cul-de-sac, a new cul-de-sac bulb were built, the area of that would be over 10,000 square feet if it was all on lot 1. And we did talk about if it was partially on or off. So the village doesn't really have control over if a wetland impact can be made. It does rest with the DNR.
So I don't know if I got I think staff addressed your issue there, Sean. Are you, all the information we have, what you've heard from Joe's opinion, my opinion, and Ryan, are you on that side, or you think with Rob that you're fine with the T?
I'd rather see it go through, but I feel like I'm missing something though. In other words, so you have inquired with the DNR
Yes.
about this particular situation?
Yes, we have.
And I'm sorry for beating a dead horse
Yep.
here, but they said
They
it's not
said
worth
that
it, or you shouldn't go for it, I guess.
As Orrin mentioned, there's various thresholds. There's there's a general permit for under 10,000 square feet. There's an individual permit above that. The lesser threshold, in their opinion, would not be met because you have to do an alternatives needs analysis. And the things they ask you in that process are what changed, that necessitates something different than the current situation. What is the impact? The quality of the wetlands is an important part of that criteria. This was what would be considered federally, additionally than the DNR, it's a federally regulated wetland because it's connected to a waterway of the state. So there's a various criteria that they looked at, and they said that even if the municipality applied for it, it's not likely that it would be granted.
Okay, so what you're saying is it is not possible to even get a permit through the DNR.
He said it's not likely.
It is.
Not likely or not possible?
I'm going
Or
to say
not
it's not
easy.
possible. I'm going to say that
Okay.
an application will be rejected. In our conversations with the DNR and our consultants, they have given that indication that there would not be reason to issue a permit to fill wetlands at this location.
I don't disagree with the applicant that it's more likely than not to be not approved. The question is and I think even Joe would concede that point. But the point that was made was, should there have been legitimate efforts to to make that attempt? So Sean, well, I'm sorry, did you want, I mean, we were taking a straw poll here so we can see how to
Like
move
I said,
forward.
I'm trying to look at it practically. I would like to see it go through, but if it really will not be issued a permit, then it's been that way for so long. Why not? What's the point? And the fact that we're doing anything with it, you know, based on what it's been for so long, I guess if we have to do something, I guess a T is the way to go. So I would vote for it if you cannot get a permit from the DNR. It sounds like you can't, and it sounds like you did your research.
All right, so Sean, do you have anything else to add one way or the other before we hear from Kurt and Sherry? You're not committing one way, you don't have a strong thought one way or the other?
Just seeing what we can go through, or seeing what the options are. I know if DNR, if it's a less, if it's a 0% probability, that's what it is. I know rules have changed and whatnot, and there is no way to put this through, and I'm just being box on this for a non-disturbance. I don't know, maybe pilings, or something elevated on a roadway, something like that.
No, yeah, I would say no. I mean, I don't think I could, I mean, if you think something may
It's
happen
just
in
out
the
of the box,
future,
it doesn't-
I would say put a condition on lot one that if any development's ever proposed on lot one, it be further investigated, but at this time, every expert that we've consulted, including the DNR, is saying it's a no-go, so.
Sherry, the outstanding issue here is obviously the cul-de-sac as it relates to the other items. What are your feelings there? I'm sorry, the cul-de-sac, the T versus, or through street.
I am fine with the proposed T terminus, since we have wetlands that will be impacting. I don't see the benefit of the road outweighing affecting the wetlands. So I am fine with the T terminus as proposed.
All right, so we have two people that are fine with that for sure. A couple other, Kurt, I'm sorry, I kind of got your indication, but after hearing all the discussion, where are you at?
So question for Joe. Cul-de-sac or T-turn, you're saying you'd rather not have the cul-de-sac?
I don't see any
Need
huge
for it.
advantage of trying to put a cul-de-sac in there because you're trying to put 4 pounds of stuff in a 2-pound bag. My concern is putting it through street, and it is what it is. I don't see any value to put a full-blown cul-de-sac in there. It just doesn't.
So this
doesn't do that
proposed
much.
road would go along the west side of lot one. So there's a property right there. So it would be on the west end of that, what you call wetland.
And we're talking, it would go through here, right?
Right. It'd be right on the edge of that property.
I mean, somehow it would come in and go from here to here-ish. I mean.
Right. So it's a straight shot, but it's on the westmost side of that considered wetland.
There'd be probably.
So minimum of impact to the wetland. Because
Minimal doesn't have anything to do with it.
It'd be probably
It's-
20,000 square
It's,
feet.
it's more like an acre,
By the time you
it's
get
more like an
going
acre
and
plus of
then-
disturbance, and even the smaller impacts, they don't, the DNR doesn't talk in terms of minimal or impact.
It's the right of way, but not the district.
Well,
How do you get a formal answer?
Yeah.
You submit an application
submit an
and in
application.
6 months you might have an answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we willing to have them submit an application to get an actual yes or no answer?
That's the question in front of the commission
Yeah.
now, right?
So we say we want the road to go through, go and try to get the approval. If it doesn't, then we default to a T.
Doing your research.
Yeah, I would say we've done the research. I'd say that there is a landowner, with a contract to sell their property here, that needs to be considered.
But I haven't seen any formal response from the DNR saying yes or no, or what the requirements are. I hear you.
Yeah.
And I respect you.
Yep.
But what formally have you done to get an answer?
We have discussed this with our consultant, who's an assured wetland delineation. We've discussed this with the DNR. We have an email and a phone conversation with them. They do not issue a formal letter unless there's an application made. There's no reason for us to make a formal application when we know the answer.
Brian,
That's the determination.
Would you be able to submit anything that you have formally in writing from either Sewer Pack or DNR or from Trio?
Yeah, Sewer Pack doesn't, I mean, Sewer Pack would say the same thing, but they would default to the DNR for any wetland impacts. Sewer Pack doesn't have jurisdiction over wetland impacts, so they're not gonna weigh in on it, but the DNR.
Do you have anything that's in writing that substantiates what you're saying, that we cannot go through the wetland? It's, I think, what.
The DNR will not respond in writing affirmative or negative without an application. You can have consultations on the phone with them, and that's what we did. If that's desired, we'll arrange that. But we've heard it loud and clear that they say there is no way this meets their requirements for alternatives or needs analysis.
And I mean, looking ahead, they got 3 connections. You got Silver Spring, then Thousand Oaks, and then whatever's on the other side. So you still have 3 things for fire to access and everything else. Even if people are up on the top of Thousand Oaks, coming down there, going down the way there, it's probably about a couple seconds difference. I don't really see much what it's gonna actually benefit. It's not a shortcut. It's not really.
It goes back to what everyone else. So is someone ready to make a formal motion on this item, and we'll continue debate, or is someone not ready yet for that?
I'll make a motion to put it to you.
So, okay, look at the item that's on the agenda and make a motion based on that, on the items C on the agenda. Oh, you got it right there. You got it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion. Let's see here. Motion to discussion necessary action on the request by the applicant Ryan Fritsch, Newman Developments, on behalf of the owners David and Mary Beth Horn, for approval of a 2-lot certified survey map to divide the parcel located N68W26098 Silver Spring Drive, LSBT 0221.999.004, and recommendation of the village board of the same.
Is that with planner and engineer comments?
Yes.
And it's a recommendation to approve,
Yes, to approve.
to recommend approval, I should say.
I'll second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Additional discussion?
This is just for the preliminary plat.
This is for the.
This is for the CSM.
Oh. Okay, sorry, I jumped in. Not bad.
But as Eric was saying, or Attorney Larson was saying, I mean, this is, I mean, some of these issues are interrelated, so.
I just as a thing of courtesy, and I don't know if this is impossible or feasible. If there is any way to go, and I know DNR probably is, and it's a way, probably a waste of phone call. If there was a proposal that there could be some type of, because I'm looking at the map here, some type of swap that might be able to do that. If it's a 0 probability, I'm just saying, if it's possible, just try to do it one more time. Even if the motion is there, I mean, because we can then amend it if we come back saying, hey, the swap is available.
Any other discussion? And so staff's recommendation is to approve the motion that's made. Anything that staff would like to add?
I think just for due diligence, I'll reach out to the DNR and I'll talk to Brian just so that I can confirm. And that way maybe it sets some peace of mind for the rest of the plan commission, and then I'll forward the response I get. So.
I just want to try to exhaust any and all possibilities, because so we can keep the consistency, and also too is that it also relieves some of the, I wouldn't say pressure, but some of the velocity that would be with the other 2 or 3 roads coming through. That's all.
So just 2 quick things. One, it's going to come up further in your agenda, and I don't want you to feel like you've been bushwhacked or something. They're coming for a waiver of your cul-de-sac length requirement on the next item. This cul-de-sac that you want Edgewood Drive, some of you want Edgewood Drive to connect to, The cul-de-sac is too long, per your code. So I just don't want you to be surprised by when that comes up. It is relevant to this discussion. The other quick comment is, there's been talk about this Brookfield case, and you're probably familiar with it. It is one reason for the staff, for my recommendation to avoid that legal issue. Frankly, I think we have some good arguments to distinguish this situation from the Brookfield case. I just don't want to have to make those arguments. I think you're better off if you can live with this, to avoid that legal issue.
What's the legal issue that you're referring to?
We had an adverse court decision where it wasn't our case, but it was in Brookfield where the city of Brookfield required a road to be dedicated from one side of a lot to the other side through somebody's parcel in approval of their land division. And the property owner said, that road does not benefit me at all. Why should I dedicate that road to connect one side to the other side? And they won, and the court said that's a taking.
But in this case, the road clearly does benefit the developer because it allows.
That's, I think we have a better argument than they did in Brookfield, absolutely. I think we have a much better argument. But
I would say our attorney is prepared to argue otherwise.
I think we would, I think there's a significant chance we'd be challenged on that. And
That's the hill I'm gonna die on.
So, I mean, the other part is we could, deny the cul-de-sac that be longer than 600 feet. I mean, if they're not willing to try to put the road through.
It's an option, but there's a million examples in Lisbon that exceed 600 feet, so I think.
I don't know that any of them are coming close to where the road should be going through.
I think it's a fine line that leads to lawsuit.
Oh.
Okay.
It's a unique situation.
We have
In my opinion, clear.
It's like that.
We have
So-
a motion on the table.
Yeah, is there any additional discussion? All right, motion's made and seconded to approve, recommend approval
Yep.
of the CSM. Sherry, don't mean to ignore you. Anything else that you wanted to add before we vote on the motion?
Not for the CSM, no.
All right. Hearing no,
subject to the conditions from the staff.
Yes, that was part of the motion.
Yes.
all right. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Hey,
Sherry, what was your vote?
Sorry, I was an aye.
Okay, and who was nay? Renee, got it. Thank you.
Item 5D is discussion of necessary action on the request of the same applicant, same property related to the proposed subdivision for the same property. Item 1, 2, and 3, do these need to be taken separately?
Yes.
All right, so item D1 is preliminary plat approval for the proposed Homestead Ridge subdivision. Is there anything else to add here? I mean,
Yeah, so we've talked about the CSM and the access. The access is only a portion of the overall proposal for the plat. So one second while I get my
you
notes.
making comment on all three of these here? You're not.
They're all in the staff report.
Okay, because I
Right.
think really, it doesn't because aren't talking 2 and 3 come before 1?
I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I think that's right. I think we're all, I mean, that's just Okay, so we'll hear the report and then we'll take item 5G.
Make one motion. They just have to be listed separately on the agenda. You can make one motion for all of them.
Oh, okay, I thought when I asked, okay, so,
I don't think that we should do that.
all right, well, we can take them up. I mean, we can go, she said we can do it together, but we can also do them separately. So we'll hear Oren's comments, then we'll address the 3 topics individually. I just wanted that background when we're hearing the comments, Oren.
Sure. Yeah, so the way that we lay out the proposal, we would want separate motions on any waiver requests. For the record, there does need to be a majority of the plan commission voting in favor of those for those to pass. So the first, we'll just talk about the fact that, again, it's the southern lot of this proposed CSM that's proposed to be developed by Newman into a subdivision plat. The overall history, again, we had a concept review for the subdivision plat before the plan commission. We did have a rezoning. I think there was a question as to whether or not the rezoning had occurred. It has, that's been approved. So R2 is the district that the proposed subdivision is designed around as far as the standards. So this is a 49 lot subdivision. Homestead Ridge is the proposed name. It would have 5 outlots. The connections are being made to Brighton Drive and to the Thousand Oaks subdivision via Wilderness Way. And then there would be a new proposed access point to Silver Spring that would have a boulevard entrance. So there would be three ways in and out of the proposed subdivision. So again, land use and zoning are all consistent. The request for the waivers, so you have a proposed length for Prairie Haven Court, which is approximately 698 lineal feet from the intersection of Wilderness Way to the north end of the cul-de-sac. The village's land division ordinance states that cul-de-sac shall not be longer than 600 feet in length, except where topographical and particular conditions warrant an extension, and will be subject to a waiver and modification to this ordinance at the sole discretion of the Plan Commission. This comes from section 7.03A of the land division ordinance. So the petitioner has requested the waiver to the village's cul-de-sac length requirement as part of their preliminary plat application. As I noted, it would take a majority vote of the entire membership of the Plan Commission to recommend a waiver to the village board. The petitioner is also proposing to develop the Homestead Ridge subdivision with a mowed path recreational trail. If you remember back to our concept plan review, one of the things that was discussed was trails. The Plan Commission expressed a desire to have trails. The developer is proposing a trail network through this subdivision. The request is to forego paving via asphalt, the portion that's along the Silver Spring right-of-way. So the code states that the surface of pedestrian trails along roadways shall be asphalt per section 8.15 of the land division ordinance. Petitioner is requesting again a waiver to that paving requirement to allow a mowed path for that portion.
The path is, I had a problem finding anything. Are you saying it's just along Silver Spring?
No, it actually goes through some other areas as well.
Okay, that's what I was.
You want to see a copy of this? Here's the plat. You want to see it? I have it.
Oh, you got the larger, yeah.
Yeah, I have one you can.
The trail system kind of winds its way through the subdivision.
We essentially did what we asked, concept plan review.
Did what you asked or did not ask?
We did ask
Okay.
for a path. Was discussion of what.
So it's a thick dashed line in gray as shown on the preliminary plat itself. So it comes north from Deer Run Court, goes through the proposed outlot 2 up and around the north end of the lots that are at the end of Prairie Haven Court. There's another access point between lots 19 20 to Prairie Haven Court. And then it goes in the other portion of the outlot through some lots and then south to,
Between 24 and 25.
correct. And then it runs along Outlot 3, which parallels Silver Spring Drive, goes all the way over to Wilderness Way near the connection to the subdivision to the west, which would be Thousand Oaks, and then it goes all the way to the east back up to Deer Run Court. So it makes a pretty good, solid connection throughout the whole subdivision.
All right, Mitch, did you have anything else to add here? No?
No, we had some technical.
All right.
That's fine.
So the easiest one here might be item D3, which is the waiver regarding the pedestrian trail surface materials. Let's take that up first, if that's okay with the commission. I like the layout and location. The question is on the surface. So I know there's been some strong opinions on this in the past. Where does, first of all, is there a motion or do we want to discuss before there's a motion? If someone wants to make a motion, just jump in. Otherwise, we'll start discussion.
I'll make a motion and a waiver to recommend waiver of chapter 12, section 815 regarding pedestrian trail surface materials.
Is there a second to that motion?
I will second it.
All right, motion was made by Joe, seconded by Brian. Oh, did I? You got it. Okay, all right. The discussion.
We required paved trails in other subdivisions that where the trails did not go along a road. We required paved trails throughout the whole subdivision. I'm just wondering why we wouldn't be doing that for this.
The Plan Commission has the discretion to approve whatever surface it deems fit for the remainder of the subdivision. And I think that's looked at on a case-by-case basis for each subdivision. The question of the waiver, again, is based on the requirement that the portion of the trail adjacent to the road be asphalt. So that's the requested waiver. But it is up to the.
They're asking for paved throughout the whole subdivision as opposed to.
They're saying that they want it to be grass trail throughout the entire subdivision with the exception of what's along the Silver Spring, which they're willing, that they're saying they're gonna pave. Did I hear what you say correct?
No, they're proposing the whole thing to be grass. The code would say it's up to the Plan Commission what the remainder of it is, but that the portion along Silver Spring be paved. That would be.
So our code for subdivision development reads the trail corridor shall accommodate a path width of a 10-foot base and an 8-foot paved surface.
The question is, do we want to grant the waiver? So I guess if we do grant the waiver, which is the motion on the table, who maintains the mowing of the trails? Is that something
HOA.
that's in the developer's agreement, that's part of the subdivision covenant?
Right. These are in the outlots, so there would be a deed restriction protective covenant. Each lot would have a fractional interest in, the outlots and be responsible for the maintenance of those, which would include the mowed path. Yes.
So if that does not get mowed,
It would be a maintenance agreement, so then if we had to intervene, we would, and then we charge the HOA. Or we'd put them on notice. We'd probably do that first until they were in compliance, which is similar to other subdivisions we have.
and could that be made clear in the plat? I mean, that's going to happen?
That, I don't know, but Eric, is that part of what we're looking at right now, or do we address that at the time?
We would
of the deed
address that
restrictions?
in the deed restrictions, probably in the developer's agreement too.
I just want to make sure that if that's out there, that the individual lot owners would know that if they don't take care of it themselves, that they could get a special assessment.
And I guess I have a question. How do you differentiate between a mowed path and someone's mowed lawn? And how accessible is it for people walking with a stroller in a mowed path?
I mean, the difference is, the difference is that the location. I mean, there is a 25-foot wide location where in between like lots 38 and 39. If they both just happen to mow lots 38 and 39 to each other, well, then it's mowed. I mean, we don't care who's mowing it as long as it's maintained. But then the rest of it would potentially be the issue.
Yeah, I'm talking like along lots 36 to 41. That's just the back of their lots.
I wanted to bring something up, that there is a difference between this scenario and the last that the Plan Commission reviewed, which would have been for October Fields. In that instance, there was a corresponding pedestrian access easement for that trail, which is not the case here. This is located within an outlot, essentially intended for use by the residents of the subdivision. We're not requesting a pedestrian access easement in this instance. If you remember from October Fields, the approval was for a waiver that would allow a grass trail. The thought was that the pedestrian access easement was requested in the instance that the village would like to pave that in the future. Because there was a thought that could connect down the road to the north along Mary Hill to Silver Spring, that there was some potential issues with that as far as a complete connection, but that was the thought. So that would be different than what's being proposed here. There's not a proposed pedestrian access easement, just for clarification.
Yeah, I'm talking about Hillside Ridge, which was another Newman development, and that we required a paved walking trail through the subdivision that ran along property lines.
Yep, and again,
Not
it's
along the
at the
road.
Plan Commission's discretion for the remainder of what the surface would be for the remainder outside of the portion parallel to the road.
Have you got a comment?
I'm good for grass, or the least we can do. From everybody I've talked to, I haven't talked to a million people on it, but nobody that I've talked to liked the idea of having these all together. Just having strangers in your backyard, if you connect this 3 miles down, and now you got a highway like plug line in your backyard with God knows who running up and down it. I would not like that in my yard, but I wasn't here before when this was talked about.
I understand that completely, but I can tell you that the pathway through my lot it's not shown anywhere, but there is one. And unless you put up a fence around your property, unless you're gonna go out there I understand exactly what you're saying. People don't like this, and people don't, when they go to close on their lot, they don't read their documents. And then in 10 years, they go, why the heck are you walking on my property? Well, I can tell you the 5 people that surround my lot, not one of them knows where their property line is. It's just the way it is.
Why are we even putting this in there? Or making them put it in there?
Because eventually there's going to be a path along Silver Spring. And if you look as an example between lots 24 and 25, that's the reason why that is there. Because eventually there's going to be, if you look at the bike and recreation plan for Waukesha County, it shows a bikeway along Silver Spring. And when we get into the subdivision that we talked about just before that, that will be connected to that bikeway. And then that will eventually connect to the bikeway in Vista Run, which will it goes on and on and on.
I don't know if I'd want that connected to a giant trail system going in and out of houses, and
Well,
I don't think that's a great idea.
All right, who was the motion made by and seconded?
Joe, seconded by Brian.
Okay, so, Sean, any additional comments on the waiver for this surface materials of the path? Kirk, anything else?
If it's grass, I don't think anyone's gonna use it, tell you the truth. To the point earlier, you're not gonna get a stroller or anything walking on grass, so the only time you use walkways of nature if they're paved. So if you don't pave it, I don't see any purpose for having it at all.
I don't know, I go for walks with my wife, and I think if it's a trail that's marked, I live in the subdivision, I probably would use it I use it either way, but yet, if you're a biker, or someone with a stroller, I understand the point. All right, so, but the paths are going in, that's a requirement. The question is on the surface material.
I think along Silver Spring, I think it should be asphalt.
Right, so if that's your feeling and you're sticking to that, then you'd vote opposed to this motion. This motion is for the waiver for the entirety of the trails. We've had a lot of discussion. Is there any additional discussion before we vote on the motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion, those opposed say nay.
Nay.
So motion carries 5-2. I got that right? You got, okay. All right, moving back up, 5D2, which is the waiver for the cul-de-sac. Again, we heard it was 698 feet as proposed versus the 600 feet, which is the maximum allowed without a waiver in our code.
What is the reason for 600? Just a number or?
I mean, I could, well, let's,
I think there's a number of homes that you want at the end of a cul-de-sac for safety reasons. So the longer the cul-de-sac, the harder it becomes for first responders, fire trucks, things like that. And you obviously always want that accessibility, similar to the reasons for connecting in the prior subdivision we discussed.
Is this discussion on this, or is there a motion? I mean, my thoughts are, I mean, I voted reluctantly in favor of the CSM, but here, I think that I'm not happy with that. I think we need to have some consistency. So I would be voting opposed to this, and they should be trying to go through if they're gonna do this. But if the rest of this is the gray area, there's the wetlands. I don't disagree with the developer that they are more likely than not to get turned down for the through road. But we don't know that for sure.
So the question is, did they design the plot diagram knowing that they were going to violate the 600 feet cul-de-sac rule? So they could have designed these lots with that. In fact, it's only 98 feet. They could have shortened that cul-de-sac up with the design of subdivision.
I think they submitted it knowing that we had a provision where they can they can request a waiver. And so they did so with talking with staff on how we can make this happen. And this was a suggested proposal for the way they can go about making a 698 foot length of road.
There was also some consideration based on the grade of the site. Brian, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. I mean, it was designed as such, knowing that the wetlands prohibited any sort of road going north. So a proper termination then, when you're planning ahead like this, would be a cul-de-sac. And then you take into consideration topography, where that road could or should or stop. Also, there's a discussion on how do you maximize the utility of this? Are you going to stop it short at 600 feet? When that's a number that was decided by Lisbon many years ago for some reason. And since then, the precedent has been established by Lisbon that they waive that 600-foot limit in almost every recent development I can think of. You know, so you go to what's practical and what's feasible, but by no means is it excessive. We're talking about 698 feet versus 600. So that's the reason why it was drawn the way it was.
So Joe, is Oktoberfield's got a cul-de-sac that's longer than 600 feet?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay, so it was waived before?
So does Hillside Ridge, so does Harvest Ridge, which were both ones that we did. So was,
It's almost a standing joke, to be honest with you.
There's a lot of them. I think the unique thing here is that they don't approach what would be a connecting road.
I'm opposed to lengthening cul-de-sacs, and I live on one.
Is there a motion on this? We can continue discussion, but is there a strong enough opinion to have someone make a motion on this item? We got D, item 2.
I'll move to approve the waiver to, chapter 12, section 7.03 paren A to exceed 600-foot cul-de-sac length on Prairie Haven Court.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right. You got that. Motion's made and seconded. Brian and Rob. Additional discussion? Sherry, your thoughts on this one?
I would like to deny the waiver, but it's only 98 feet longer, so I would be okay with it. I mean, I don't like extending cul-de-sacs, but it's, looking at their configuration, I don't know if they shorten it up 98 feet, if they can, how they would reconfigure their lots.
To be clear, if Edgewood wasn't there, I would be voting in favor of the cul-de-sac extension. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. Sure, you were aye. Okay, so it's, I
Yes.
heard correct. Motion carries 5-2.
Who were the dissenting?
It was me and Kurt.
Thank you.
So with those waivers, granted, the last item is, 5D, item 1, which is preliminary plat approval for the proposed Homestead Ridge subdivision.
There's just one comment that was made by somebody in the audience regarding the drainage, the pumping of water, and I thought maybe somebody want to address that.
I had 2 points and that was one of them, so thank you, Dan.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So,
And then this is on you as well. So then the access points onto Silver Spring with Homestead Ridge Road at the crest there that has come up with others. We've addressed, but it's also been, just if you can talk to that as well.
I'll speak specifically on the kettle in the neighboring subdivision. With regards to, so a stormwater management report had been submitted. We're in the process of still reviewing that. We have some comments on that. What they're demonstrating in that area is they're lessening the amount of area that is draining towards that kettle today. It's not extremely significant, but it's enough to minimize some of the flow that's going there. There's some technical things in there within that, with what they're demonstrating that we feel might change things a little bit, but it still does reduce the amount of flow and peak flows that are going towards that kettle. So at this point, we're still reviewing that. I don't know if they have anything else to add regarding that, but it does reduce the flows that are going towards that kettle today.
The peak flows.
The peak flows,
Yeah.
correct. The
Make sure
peak
you
flows.
use the
Yes, I'm
magic
sorry.
word.
The peak flows.
Let's say it is still an issue. What happens then?
If it's still I mean, it would be something that I guess that we're gonna have to look at and address with the developer and with the neighboring subdivision. They're doing everything they can, I guess.
So, I mean, we're talking there.
Yeah.
This is really, really preliminary. So outlot 5 is shown on there, was added for that reason from when we did the concept. Because I don't know if it was you or your neighbors brought it up, that you're pumping a depression onto the Horn property currently. So with that in mind, outlot 5 was designed, from what I can say, the design has not been fully vetted by the county, but the idea is that water exits to the south, it goes down the swale, it crosses further south.
Yeah, explain that.
So this is different than what the commission saw in a couple months ago?
The concept did not have an outlet here.
Okay.
This
all right.
outlet was added specifically because that comment was made.
So he's pumping up here and then it's just.
Guys, we still have people on Zoom. Can you speak into the microphones, please?
Sorry, I don't have a laser pointer. It's hard. This preliminary plat does not have all of the specific design of a stormwater plan, and it won't. It's not the purpose of a preliminary plat. But outlot 5 was added that's a skinny one along the side there, OL 5, OL number 5.
okay.
So OL number 5 would have a means of catching stormwater from the backyards of those lots, but also understanding that you've got a pond that you're pumping in that direction. It would be allowed to flow south to the right of way Wilderness Way. And then if you go kind of towards the bend in Wilderness Way, there's a cross culvert there,
Sure.
that line that crosses through the road. Right.
Okay, you can take.
I don't know.
So where would we pump to?
The understanding is right now you're pumping, I'm guessing you're pumping to somewhere behind lot 48. Does that sound right? And then gravity takes over or take it all the way?
It goes all the way down
Okay.
to Silver Spring to the ditch, the hose.
So if you continue to pump into the ditch of Wilderness Way, the Wilderness Way will now continue to the east. And that would exit. Yeah,
So
it's
you're
hard to
adding.
describe into the
You're
microphone
adding
and point.
Into your new subdivision, so we can just pump it to your ditch and your.
Yeah,
ditch
the
will drain.
standard road profile of Lisbon is a ditch section of
Okay.
road. So yes, those
So
ditches
as long
would.
as we can pump into that ditch, I'm good.
In that outlot, we, you know, in the process of defining the stormwater
Somebody
system.
happy tonight.
That, yeah.
I just want to place a pump, I don't really.
No, I
care.
understand.
Public right, yeah, we,
You might not even need.
yes, and I mean, long story short, yes, your water is now on the radar of our engineers and Waukesha County. And if you can continue to get it to the right of way, it does end up on our property and then we deal with it.
As long as you're okay with that, I'm good with that.
There we go. Rose back.
Michael's gonna make at least one friend tonight, right?
That's early. We still got 2.5 hours, so.
All right, and then, or maybe the question that could go back to you with the access point on the Silver Spring and the location.
So that would be up to the county. So it's a county right of way. They have jurisdiction as far as allowing or not allowing that access point in that location.
So the preliminary plat, it gets reviewed by Waukesha County. We did just receive those formal comments, I think just at the end of last week. County Highway Department reviewed the access location. They're fine with the access location on VV, and their conditions are standard conditions of design and permit.
So are they fine with this location, or do they feel as though this is the best location?
Part of that process does site distance requirements. So those would be part of the permit, but they'll routinely go out on site on their own and do their own site distance check on a preliminary early level. And this would be consistent with their recommendation. It's kind of at the crest of a hill. So it's.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's a resident had approached me and said that they would like it further to the east. And I, drove it, saw where this was versus that. My opinion, I mean, with all due respect to that person, was that this made a lot more sense when I was driving it.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to make sure that this was discussed.
That's where the deer cross.
I spoke to that individual as well and explained that the crest of the hill is probably the safest spot because you have visions pulling out, going down both ways and coming up to address it. So.
I mean, that's just the theory, but then if you go out there and look at it, I think you see it and agree with it as well. I mean.
It doesn't matter. It's their road. They can tell you what, they can take all the comments from us in the world. It's their decision, so.
Well, I mean, if we thought that it was better someplace else, we could ask the developer to redesign and have that access point there.
No, the county will
The
tell
county.
you where it is.
It's their road.
Well, let's go back to my earlier point with they approved this location, but you said they may have approved a different location as well.
The county's gonna look for the optimal location. You're not gonna get down.
Brian, can you hit the mic.
It's not gonna get down to move it 10 feet left or 10 feet right, so an engineer proposes a location, verifies that location with site distances. And this is the location that they support and would approve. That's the gist of it.
All right, so item 5D I, is there a motion on this item?
I have just one question. So is this too early to tell, or if you don't know, where are we gonna end Brighton Drive and Wilderness Way? Do you know, where are you gonna end them, right at the
Probably
boulevard?
right at that intersection.
boulevard?
Yeah, that
Okay.
T of the new road, as that would make a clear separation of addressing more than likely.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then the other question is, so you're doing phase 1 and phase 2?
Mhm.
Obviously, you're gonna open phase 1 first, but before you open phase 2, do not renumber the lots like you did in Preserve at Harvest Ridge. I will come and find you.
Yeah, knowing our phrases up
Do
front,
not
this
renumber the
this
lots.
preliminary plat numbering should be consistent because we
Okay, promise? Make a pinky swear.
promise.
Okay.
For you, Brian, we'll do it.
It's on TV, it's on the tape.
Yeah, we, that came up, actually.
Sure it
All
did.
right,
I have one question, maybe a common question for Brian. Some subdivisions in Lisbon are storm sewer and curb. And a lot of subdivisions are ditches. I'm assuming this is ditches. So what defines that, and when would we have ditches versus storm sewer and curb?
That is not a question for me.
The developers.
It is just a developer's preference.
There are some subdivisions that have both. And
Is there an added cost to the village
Oh.
to have storm sewer and curb?
no, because the developer puts it in at their cost, the property owners who purchase the lots, it's their cost.
No, it gets dedicated to the village,
Yeah,
so it is
it's in the
ma-
price of the lots.
it's a maintenance expense to us in the future, yes.
But 20 years down the line, when
Yes.
the concrete has to be replaced. But it does have an appearance, I mean, some of the subdivisions you're thinking of a cleaner, it's gonna cost the developer more and it's probably gonna result in a premium pricing of the lots.
Yeah, but you hear a lot of residents that complain about their ditches are all full of mud and water all the time and they can't cut them. You don't have that problem with storm sewer and curb, and it is make it very clean. I was just wondering why we don't adapt that.
Is it safe to say that a smaller lot, like a 3/4 acre or a half acre lot, makes it more feasible for a developer to do sewer, curb and gutter than as opposed to if you have an acre plus lot where you have the room to put the water in the front of the home?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah, it makes it more cost benefit for that developer if they have smaller lots and can fit more lots in there, and then,
If they're allowed, yes.
yeah.
Preserve at Harvest Ridge, that's all curb and gutter.
Yep.
And then October Fields is all,
Ironwood is.
Park Ridge.
So is the reason why you didn't do storm sewer and curb and gutter in this subdivision?
October Fields.
So
Sorry.
there's two,
Sorry about
there's
that.
two major developers that are working it within the village consistently. There's a difference. So Newman likes the more rural aspect. The other developer likes to put in the curb and gutter, but that other developer has done both.
Newman has curb and gutter on that big Lisbon or Sussex development.
That's Sussex.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Smaller lots,
We don't require it within our ordinance. So
We
that's-
don't.
Those
no,
lots
we
are this
don't.
big.
But they have actually a storm sewer system. Even if we had that system, it still gets, it doesn't go to a treatment facility. It stays on
Right,
site.
it goes to ponds.
Pond,
that are
right, yeah,
dedicated
exactly.
and everything.
Are we now ready for a motion?
why not? I think we should.
You wanna go ahead,
Oh,
Brian?
sure. I'll move to approve the preliminary plat approval for the proposed Homestead Ridge subdivision.
Is there a second? It's a, yeah.
Is that with
Oh.
planner and engineer comments or no?
Sorry, with planner and engineer comments. Sorry about
And it's a
that.
recommendation
And
to,
recommendation of board of the same.
is there a second to that motion?
I need a drink.
All right. Brian made the motion, Sean seconded. Any additional discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries 7-0. Item 6 is planner report.
We have a CSM for our next meeting, potentially a second, but TBD.
That's all I have to report at this time.
One other note, is quarry reports are due to Village Hall by Friday, June 20th, so they can be distributed with packets for the June Plan Commission agenda. So if you can get them to either Jasmine or Dan or me by the 20th, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Joe made the motion, Rob seconded.
Yep.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
I got 9:39 PM.